Good. All right, guys. In other words, in short words, this package sucked. So let's talk about it. I'm Darian Gilliam, and this is the NASCAR Weekly Podcast.
Green flag. I'll roll him. I'll roll him. He's flipping me out. Ah! Hell yeah, boys! How about that? They cut. Push it in the wall. He drew it off the track. Baby, that's how you do it. Get that second flag, son. Yeah, baby, yeah. Hell yeah.
And just to make sure there's no mishaps, okay, now you guys are on, so like they'll be able to hear you guys. I know last time I struggled with that on the last show on this channel. So again, so we are here tonight with our usual panel and our special guest, Michael Cosley. Cosley, is that how you say your last name? I'm sorry.
Cozy? That's
Cozy.
okay.
Okay, Cozy,
yeah, it trips people up every once in a while. You good?
But people know you as windVOW on YouTube, right?
Yes,
How's it going,
that's
man?
me. That's going good. How y'all doing?
Oh, we're doing great tonight. So let's get right into it. So Sunday's race at Dover was postponed due to rain, so it was moved all the way to Monday. And I gotta say, I'll start off the whole review here. We had some pretty good racing throughout stages 1 and 2, but then the final stage was the one where most fans were pretty displeased with, I would say. You know, Truex won by like something like 12 seconds, like something crazy like that. Some other surprises. Alex Bowman ended up finishing second there and almost won stage 2 as well. So that was pretty cool to see. We also saw, you know, Suarez. He was running up there he was running inside the top 10 up there as well. And then Kyle Busch, he had some choice words, but we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, so Eric, start us off here. What'd you think of the race?
Yeah, I think it was another way. It was just a mediocre NASCAR race. You know, I don't think Dover. I'd be curious to hear you guys' thoughts, but I feel like Dover hasn't produced like a great race or an even above average race since probably 2016. So it's fun. It's the Monster Mile. It looks fast. It's a different feel. It's no other track on the circuit like it. So I still like Dover, but it is not a top track on the NASCAR schedule. It doesn't usually. I don't go into Dover expecting an all-time classic race. If we get it, I'm very pleasantly surprised, but I don't expect it. And I think you're right. I think you summed it up. The first half of this race, first two stages were pretty fun. Had a great battle at the end of stage 2. I will say I do think some people have and usually I'm the optimist. I think some people have actually even overstated the first two stages, mainly because of who was running up front. I think that was a large reason why it was fun, because you saw not only Chase Elliott, who's now the new golden boy, but you also saw Alex Bowman, who doesn't run up front very often. For a while there, people were thinking like he's going by Truex, he's going by Kyle Busch, he's going by Harvick, and we're like, is Alex Bowman about to win this race? And it got people's spirits up a little bit. I think that made it exciting. But then once Truex ultimately took the lead in stage 3, you knew nobody was taking it from him. He won the race by, I think, 9.5 seconds or 10 seconds, something like that. So ultimately, stage 3 fell flat. But sometimes, you know, even in baseball, you go to a baseball game, you're excited, you're there with your dad, you got your glove to catch a foul ball, and the home team gets beat 11-0. That happens every week in baseball. You know, sometimes this sporting event's just going to be like that, and I feel like that's kind of what the final stage of Sunday's race was, or Monday's race was. Wasn't horrible, but it was. If we like to rate it on a scale of 10, I think I gave it a 50 on my groovy gauge. I'll give it a 5 out of 10.
And to add to that, I would say, depending on who's leading makes a huge difference. Like, if that was Alex Bowman who won the Monday race by like 12 or 13 seconds, I don't think fans would have, more or less like as many problems with it as they do now and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Probably slightly less, but no, I don't know.
Slightly less, right? Jarrett?
See, I think this is really weird because it's 2 weeks in a row where I'm probably about the race the most positive person on the panel, because I actually liked it. I liked the first two stages a lot better than the last half. I think that's pretty obvious, but I don't think the last half honestly was as bad as many people are stating. You know, I don't think it by any means it was good. I think that part of it, I think, had to do with the coverage. You saw the same 5 guys up front. I mean, it showed through the pack, and there were times, there were people that were moving up and down through the field. There were, at times, comers and goers, while the top 5 stayed pretty static, I'd say, for the last 200 laps. I think it was David Land had said, like, the last 100 laps outside of pit stops, they really didn't change positions, except for, like, I think Larson moved up one.
Yeah.
So, like, it's pretty similar to every other Dover race. I think we've seen I think the last time I saw a Dover race where people were passing and really shuffling through the field a lot had to have been probably, I'd say, fall 2013 is probably the best I can think of when we have Gen 6. But I mean, at the same time, I think that when you compare it to Talladega, uh, the expectations are so much higher. And after coming off such a high, I think I put on Twitter the other day, like we were sort of brought back down to earth. But I'd say I know people are gonna think I'm crazy for this, but on out of 10, I'd say 7. That's what I'd give it. I think it reminded me a lot of the Atlanta race, to be honest.
Yeah.
The beginning stages and middle were better, and I'll be completely honest, the last 80 laps or whatever it was after that pit stop were pretty bad. But the rest of it really I didn't think was.
But I guess I have to ask really quick, and I know David Land alluded to this. Like, so does the margin of victory does it make a huge difference on whether this race was or for that matter any race? Does it make a huge difference on whether it's good or not?
No, I don't think so, honestly. For instance, some of the closer finishes in races have been some of the bigger duds. So you look at Talladega last year; it was a close finish by all means, but I think most of us can say it was a dud. Whereas a race like Kansas in 2006, it was, I think Stewart won that race by like 20 seconds, but with all the people running out of gas, with all the passing earlier in the race and some of the great restarts, it was a pretty good race. And I'd say compared to most modern races, it would probably beat 80% of mile and a half modern races. So I think that, I mean, I won't say it has no effect. I think it has some, but I don't think it has nearly the amount of effect that people give it.
I think it's a bad race can to partially be saved by a good finish. It's the same with movies. If movies kind of slow, but if the third act is just incredible or sends you on a ride, you'll walk out of that theater feeling pretty good more often than not. And I think I'm not saying that a 10-second a guy wins by 10 seconds definitely doesn't mean the race was definitely bad. But like you said, Talladega last fall was not a good race for 80-90% of it. But that final restart, final finish is pretty memorable, and we do talk about that finish still today. So it's still, I think, a finish can help a bad race, but I don't necessarily think that if a finish is dull, that means the whole race was bad. I do think out of a full, say, 500-mile race, the most important portion of that race, entertainment-wise, needs to be the last 50 miles, in my opinion. But it's not like crazy different than the rest of the race. But it is significant because it is it's the finish,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael?
I agree with what he said. I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't really care about the finish of the race, and I mean, if it's 9 seconds, it's 9 seconds. You watch enough racing, that goes outside of NASCAR. You're gonna have those races where, the leader wins by 10 seconds or whatever. But that doesn't. I don't think that's. I mean, it happens. It's gonna happen. It's always gonna happen. So it's not that big of a deal for me. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
As far as the race at Dover, I'm curious what kind of just. Can you talk about the finish? What do you think of the first, just the race in general?
Yeah, I think it was that, okay, so I've watched my fair share of bad Dover races. I think we all have. I've been to Dover a good couple of times, and it's always a fun track to watch a race. But for whatever reason, I don't know. I just thought it was. I had a good time watching it. There's a lot of cars that were out of shape, and that went throughout the field. I know even there was a lot of lap cars out there that were causing problems. I just thought it was an interesting race to me. There was just a lot of cars going a lot of different directions, and cars trying to weed their way through traffic. And even the Spire car, I think he made it a pretty interesting race.
Oh
so.
my god, why is he even there? So annoying. I even alluded to that on Twitter. He was in Elliott's way, he was in Larson's way, he was in Bush's way. I don't know. Why is he?
He got parked, and I don't even think he had like damage.
That's
really.
right,
He just parked it because he wasn't going fast enough.
Too slow.
Guy.
They were like, "Sit your ass down, man. You need to get out of here, man." For real. But I guess some things I want to also allude to is we saw some surprises. I mean, Kyle Larson for the first time this season, no bad luck, had his best finish, got a top 5 finish, scored some stage points there, and just like that is back in the playoff hunt. And then Alex Bowman, obviously, finishes second. He almost won the second stage as well, and then now he's all of a sudden he's back in the playoff hunt there. Eric, why don't you start us off, man? What are some surprises that caught your eye in the Dover race?
Well, definitely Alex Bowman, and this has been, I think, Hendrick Motorsports in general. The last 2 weeks has looked the best they've looked all season, probably since. I mean, Chase won 3 races over the course of like a month, so I guess they looked pretty good then. But it was really just him. But as a whole, Hendrick Motorsports looks great. Chase was in the top 5, finished in the top 5. Bowman led a significant amount of laps despite starting in the rear. If you told me of all people, Alex Bowman would drive through the field at Dover of all places to lead a significant amount of this race, I would have been shocked.
Yeah, we'd laugh at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and so I think 2 weeks ago before Talladega, I think he was 21st in points, and we talked about during the off week. Wow, what happened to the guy that overachieved last year in that '88 car? What happened to the guy that was like, I think he finished like around 10th in points last year? What happened to that guy? Well, I think we've seen glimpses the last 2 weeks of I think what we thought Alex Bowman would be coming into this season. Finished second in every stage and in the race at Talladega, and now finished second and got stage points at Dover, and he's now inside the top 16 in points as well. He was the biggest surprise. You mentioned Kyle Larson. It's nice to see him at least run well at one of his best tracks, and that definitely helped him out a ton also.
Really quick, BGM Productions, thank you for the $1 super chat, and also just a friendly reminder, any super chats with any comments attached to them, I will be reading them at the top of the next hour of the show, for sure. Michael, what were some big surprises in the Dover race?
The first thing that comes to mind to me, and it probably, I just thought it was really interesting to me because I was watching, and Truex, man, I don't think I've ever seen a car that good in my life. Like even at Dover, like I don't know if you noticed, and it like especially with the dirty air and how such a big of an issue it is this year, but like just at the rate he like got through the center of the corner, I don't know what they had, but in the dirty air too, like when he's trailing some of those guys, it just the rate he got through the center of the corner and just closed the gap on a lot of those guys. I think he was trailing Bowman at some point in there, just riding right behind their tire tracks. It was crazy to me. I wanted to tweet it, I didn't get around to it, but it was just amazing to me how good that car was. Like if he were to qualify better and start towards the front of that race and ran up front, he probably would have lapped all up to 5th.
Yeah,
that car was incredibly
started
good.
all the way in the back too, and still managed to pull that off. That's
crazy.
Impressive. Yeah, very impressive. Jarrett.
So I'll kind of go back to Alex Bowman on what I found impressive, but sort of for a different reason. Is I noticed last year, and I noticed a bit in 2016 when he filled in for Dale Jr. is that Alex Bowman can run up front a lot, and his cars can be good at times. But he stayed up there, especially towards the end. And granted, some of it had to do with the fact that his crew did very well on their stops, but a lot of it had to do with him driving that car and keeping it up there. And I have to say I'm impressed by that. He definitely exceeded my expectations because I thought he was going to fall back to like, even with how good the car was, to 4th or 5th. Years of watching Greg Ives be a crew chief, he usually makes the wrong adjustments towards the end. That's what I've noticed. And but I think, in my opinion, that is the best I've seen the 88 car run since Dale Jr. was in it at the end of 2015. Like just all around, putting a full race together on pit road, on the box, and in the car. And I'll be honest, I felt like when he was up there racing Harvick and Truex, I put on there, I'm like, am I back in 2015 or something? The 88 and the 4 or 1-2 out there, and it's not strategy that caused it. So I was very pleasantly surprised by Mr. Bowman.
And I actually want to shout out William Byron for kind of the same thing. I think even worse last year as a rookie, he had a habit of, he'd qualify okay at some races, maybe start in the top 10, but by the end of stage 2, he was 18th or worse. And it was just kind of like, that's William Byron. I think and you mentioned Greg Ives with Alex Bowman. I think this is where Chad Knaus is making a real positive difference with William Byron this year. He started up near the front in this race, and with Chad Knaus, a veteran crew chief, and I'm sure William Byron knows what he's talking about as well, they were able to keep him up there more or less. He finished, I think, 8th. So, that was another example. And I agree with you on Alex Bowman. Obviously, was more extreme. He finished 2nd, but William Byron, given, his less experience, I was impressed with him as well, that he was able to kind of put together a full race and not fade into obscurity by the end of, lap 200.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also got a top 10 too. Forgot to mention that. So good runs all around for Hendrick Motorsports. Except Jimmy Johnson. I don't know where he finished. It was outside of the top 10 though, so it's not good by his standards.
11th or 12th. I mean, I think he finished on the lead lap.
Okay.
He was 14th.
Oh, he was 14th. Oh, okay, all right.
But still, for Jimmy Johnson at Dover, I mean, I think he's won like double digits here, so that's
11, I think.
Yeah, I think
like
it's like
that?
11,
Ugh.
10 or 11. I mean, that's yikes. Like I think the true fall off for Jimmy Johnson is starting to really show. I mean, granted with Knaus gone, that might be part of it, but it's just there's been so many races at Dover I've seen before where Jimmy Johnson for the first 200 to 300 laps can be running 17th, 18th. I think was it 20 well, not 2012. It was one of
2011, maybe.
no, it was I forgot. It was in the early 2010s. It might have been right at the start of the Gen 6. But what Johnson ran like 17th, 18th, 19th all day,
Mm.
and then the last 100 laps, his car just came to life. He sliced right through the field and went on to win. So
Mm.
and the car really didn't change too much. It was just Jimmy Johnson is that good at Dover. So I think there might be a little reason to worry that he's the worst performing Hendrick car when Hendrick is doing better at his arguably best track between that or Martinsville. His best track during his career.
Yeah,
So that's surprising.
all around not the best situation. So we'll have to wait and see if he improves later on in the season. Really quick, Rizzy, thank you for the 99-cent super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the channel and the podcast as well. All right, so moving on, the Dover.
Really quick, I wanted to sort of show that.
Oh yeah, that's right. All right, yeah, share screen it.
So,
it's all. On you.
It's all on me right now.
Yep, it's all on you.
Alrighty.
Very interesting poll too, by the way.
So I run this poll each week. I've done it the past 4 races, just asking what everybody watching thinks of the race. So this week I asked, what'd you think? And we had 7% great, 28% thought it was a good race, 50% said it was an average race, 10 below average, and 5% said it was bad. And while that might seem generally positive, let me see, I gotta pull this up really quick. I've been doing this now for the last 4 weeks, and I can say that without a doubt, this week has been the absolute lowest for both. Been the lowest for great compared to last week's for sure. But when it comes to net positive, 35% is by far the lowest, especially compared to last week when 91% said it was either great or good. And it's the highest net negative with 15%. So people did not like it. I don't know if we want to scroll through. There's like 80 comments.
Oh yeah,
so
just scroll through some. I see Smithfield. Yeah, unfortunately he didn't watch it, but.
So Evan Nekula said I skipped school so I could attend the race. It was amazing seeing everything. And see, that's the big difference between being there at the race and being at home. I think is you can see everything, take in the whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he liked it. Let's see. A lot of people didn't get to watch, and we'll get to a little bit on TV ratings in a bit.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of people didn't watch. We're about to get into it.
Jeffrey Robertson, way to go, Alex Bowman, second straight race, finishing second place. So Redneck Hendrick Motorsports saddle again. Okay. Let's see. Patriotic Pioneer says, I was at the race, so I think it was good. Oh. I hope
right.
you're more definitive on your stance.
Yeah. Okay.
Nicholas Clayton said it felt like a typical Dover race, and I think to a big degree it did.
Yeah.
I will admit that, even though I'm not a fan of Dover.
And then Jay Wilson says boring right there with 2 likes.
And a lot of people did. Roland Jovi 24, I hope I pronounced that right, says typical Dover race, nothing spectacular, wasn't bad either, 5 out of 10. Let's see.
One more comment.
Fast Fox then said, damn, I wish Bowman would have won. It's more of a need than ever for a first-time winner again. I would agree.
Especially nowadays, yeah. Especially nowadays,
too.
too.
But the 3 biggest ones I saw, I'm going to stop sharing now. The 3 biggest ones that I could really see for the most part were either I couldn't see it, I was there, or Bowman did well. And then I guess the 4th one in is boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figure we could probably do that each week. I always run that poll, and I figure it'd be really cool to get a lot of you guys watching to maybe get some of your comments out there. So
oh yeah, speaking of polls, Eric, what did the old Groovy Gauge say this week for the race?
I gave it a nice even 50%. Like I said earlier, I think I agree with that one comment that said 5 out of 10. It was kind of your average Dover race, nothing super special. I didn't think it was a horrible race.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was pretty average too, typical Dover race. So I don't know, I don't know, with all of the with some of the outrage over the race though, I wonder if NASCAR will make a knee-jerk reaction and maybe change some things up for the upcoming fall Dover race. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of ratings, so the Dover ratings came out today. Adam Stern said he tweeted out he tweeted out earlier today. Only 785,000 people watched the postponed Monday Dover race, and on Sunday the postponed Dover race coverage had 1.5 million viewers there. I'm gonna start off with our guest Michael here. So what do you think? Are people overreacting to these numbers, or is there a reason for general concern here?
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret the ratings are down, but I mean, not a lot of people like Dover anyways, and when it's rescheduled on a Monday, I can't imagine a lot of people would want to watch it. So, I mean, I'm gonna watch regardless. I'm sure a lot of hardcore NASCAR fans are gonna watch regardless, but I wouldn't concern too much. I wouldn't be concerned at all, really.
Yeah, I think that's important to note that it is a Dover race on FS1. I think back to like last year when the early Bristol race got postponed to a Monday. I don't remember the exact ratings, but I still think it was over 1 million. And I think that's just because it's Bristol. Bristol draws a lot of eyeballs. Dover, I think people are like, yeah, we can skip Dover. It's not especially after last week's Talladega. Some fans that watch Talladega are probably like, all right, that's my NASCAR race for the spring. I'll wait until Daytona or something in July. So yeah, I don't know that. I'm not too surprised. Now I will say, seeing a NASCAR Cup race in the 6 digits, under 1 million viewers, you don't see that very often, and that definitely is kind of like, ooh, that's kind of shocking. Like that's not great. We joked a few weeks ago. I don't. This is kind of unfair. Maybe we joked a couple weeks ago about how one of the whatever Cup race it was had like almost 3 million viewers versus IndyCar had like 300,000, and we were like, 300,000. What are y'all doing over there? It's like, we see this race. I know it's a Monday. I know it's FS1. I know it's Dover, but in the mid 700,000s, that's a little concerning. That is kind of like, I don't want to say a wake up call because it is a Monday. You can't overreact, but I want to go back and see other Monday races the last couple of years and see how bad those are because that seemed low.
Well, yeah, when I saw those numbers, I didn't really look at it as a big issue here. I mean, like you guys just said,
it's a wash mostly. I mean, up until this point, if we add up the first 10 races of the year, however many ratings have been up still, a couple percent since last year. So it's not a big deal, but it was.
It's Monday. It's Monday. People have work. They have to go to school. I mean, just in Jarrett's poll alone, there, like a lot of people commented, "Oh, I couldn't watch it because of school. I had no way to tune into it. I was at work. I had school, that sort of thing." So I don't know. I really look at it as not a major issue here. But Jarrett, you might feel a little bit differently on that.
I think I'm a little more concerned than the rest of us for it, just because a lot of races that have been postponed, whether it be that Bristol one, the Bristol one I don't think is easy to compare it with because it is Bristol. But the Martinsville race, for instance, like Martinsville generally gets a lot lower ratings than any surrounding races, and is a lot closer in ratings on FS1 as Bristol, or not Bristol, Dover usually is. Sorry, I'm thinking a little smaller here. But Martinsville last year, when it was snowed out and had all the postponement problems and was run on a Monday afternoon, still got it was again, we have to gauge where we're looking at it from. So if it's a 1.1 million or 1.2 million, it still was over 1 million people watching by a little bit of a gap. And then you compare it with Dover, which has pretty comparable ratings, I'd say. And I had to admit, I'm a little concerned about that because I keep thinking with the ratings slightly ticked up, I just kind of am wondering if they're not showing up on Monday the way that generally years with ratings going up that people tune on Mondays and keep a little bit more of the audience than half. Usually ratings get about 60 to 70%, I would say, of Sunday's average audience. If 1.5 million was what the postponement was getting and we had 785,000, that's just over half. I'm wondering just how many people that are watching again this year are watching more just out of, well, there's nothing else on, or it's just sort of a fad to turn on, compared to being as diehard about it and wanting to continue watching more and more. That's what I'm sort of worried about.
And also, I want to speak to attendance really quick. For Monday, it was pretty good attendance, I'd
It
say.
was good
Obviously,
Monday.
it
The
wasn't
attendance
full.
was
It wasn't full, of course. Obviously, no NASCAR race nowadays is sold out. Nowadays, but I'd say for the most part, for a Monday race, it was pretty good. Eric, don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Dover seats like 80,000 people. I would say there's probably my view. I'd say there's probably 30,000 people there, which is about almost as much or about as much as we're at Phoenix a few weeks back. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think I thought for a Monday afternoon it was a pretty good crowd. And I actually remember thinking when they were doing the pace laps on Sunday, thinking they might get some laps. And looking at the crowd then, I was pleasantly surprised. There's probably 50, 60,000 people at least there, and I thought that was pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, it looked up even for some of the other races. So I hope Dover gets an increase in people going to the race because generally I've noticed that granted it's been going down, but at the same time the slight upticks are usually for years that the racing gets better and while I'd say most people don't agree the racing was any better or worse than last year, if the people there are liking it, that's only a good thing.
And also, I'm looking in the chat. They're like, "Oh, Dover needs lights." If you've watched windVOW's NASCAR Thunder series, they do have a night race in that series. So yeah, so you can actually race that track in career mode though. So you can do that. I don't know.
It's not much better, but it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool there. So there you go. Get your Dover light fix right there. All right. So for the next topic, NASCAR is making some more rule package tweaks. So it was announced today, according to Bob Pockrass, Atlanta. Well, oh wait, hold on. Sorry, let me pull it up. I have the wrong thing up here. Okay, there we go. It says NASCAR will use aero ducts instead of brake ducts for the Pocono, Darlington, and the season finale Homestead races. After analyzing the data, NASCAR felt brake ducts are not needed at those 550 horsepower races. I don't know, Eric, start us off. Will this improve the racing tremendously, or what should we expect from this?
I mean, the thing is, we don't know what these tracks are going to look like with the brake ducts. We haven't seen a race of Pocono this year. I mean, I think the only track that's used the 550 horsepower with brake ducts, not aero ducts, I think was Atlanta. And I think most people agree it was an okay race, but not necessarily any different or that much different, at least, than Atlanta races years prior. I don't think this is a major thing. I am a little surprised, though, because I believe, and now correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an engineer, but the brake ducts, the advantage of using those at some of these tracks is because brakes would, the drivers would be using brakes a lot more, and it was to help cool the brakes, whereas the current aero ducts are more to kind of help with dirty air, a little bit help with airflow, not necessarily to actually cool the brakes. And given that Pocono, we've seen some, like was last year, Bubba Wallace almost flipped over the wall because he lost his brakes at full speed. We've seen this happen a few times at Pocono before. That's a little concerning if they're like, oh, the brakes aren't looking too bad at Atlanta. All right, we'll just let them run hot. Let them run hot at Pocono. That's fine. That seems a little, I don't know, that's a little questionable to me. But from the sounds of it, and I read the same report, for teams since about a year ago have been asking NASCAR to try, in order to cut costs, to try and find one pretty much universal package they can run at every track. And I think that's part of what their issue's been this year, is because they're trying to run the same type of stuff at Texas that they're trying to run at Dover, with minor tweaks obviously here and there, but that just doesn't always work. The same package isn't going to work the best at every single track. And it sounds like that's what they're doing here. They're just like, hey, let's simplify it some more. We aren't going to use those special ducts at those tracks. Let's just make it the same as everywhere else. And it might work. It might not work. I don't think Darlington the race will look that different than we've seen in years past. Pocono is the one I'm most intrigued by, because with those long straightaways, even when they had 900 horsepower engines, they would draft on each other a little bit, and that was kind of crazy. So that's what I'm most intrigued about. And then obviously Homestead, making it the championship race now, is going to see a little bit more drafting, a little bit more pack racing come into play. I don't know how the drivers feel about that. That's all I'll say there. But I don't think this is any significant news, but I don't think it's going to have a major impact on the racing.
Jarrett?
I'll be honest, I actually think it's going to be a little bit of a net negative. I think the more that they keep, adding this stuff for more drafting and drag with it, it's just they already have the problem of dirty air. And the corner speeds are going to be a little bit higher regardless of this package. So we're going to have more dirty air. The cars being faster in the corner, in my opinion, are going to just make them even more finicky, to where it's going to be tough for them to be beside each other. I'm not surprised by any means by it. I think that's what they're aiming for, one set package for the teams, and just so it makes it easier. At the same time, though, I don't know at this point if they're going to go on top of that with the dirty air problem is with these corner speeds so much higher, especially with even with just another topic with the short tracks and the shorter tracks. Goodyear can't make as much of a more pro racing tire as much as they have to make a pro safety tire. They have to make the tire so hard so we don't have an Indianapolis 2008 every week. I'm not crazy. Yeah, I'm not crazy about this. I know that's probably where they're gonna be going to, so I'm not gonna get overblown about it. I guess if they just change, like let's say they just cold turkey went to something even further, I guess I'd be a little more animated about it. But I was expecting it, to be completely honest. The more the season went on, the more I was thinking about it. The racing, for the most part, really didn't change too awful much when you compare the ones that do and don't. So my thoughts are just sort of indifferent. We kind of know what to expect at this point. Not to mention, especially with Pocono, that the racing is never really going to be too awful good there.
I mean, at least NASCAR is doing something with Pocono. To be honest with you here.
Yeah.
As far as Michigan and Homestead, I'm like, maybe you didn't have to touch those races, maybe. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to it just to see what happens. Michael, your thoughts?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not an engineer either, but I don't know. I don't like to think too much about it. I just like to see how it goes. You know what I mean? Because nobody ever really knows exactly how it's gonna work out. I mean, I thought I had my mind up about the package this year, and it did something totally different, something I didn't think it would totally do. But well, I don't know. Can they make it any worse? Do you think? I don't know.
I don't know. Let's not underestimate NASCAR. Maybe I don't know. They've done.
I'm sure they could try.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they did.
France is gone though, so there's
so there is hope.
I have more hope than I would in previous years.
Right. So there is some hope there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. All right, so now we are on to the main topic. Everyone has been talking about the past couple of days, and even today. I know NASCAR Twitter was in a frenzy yesterday. It was insane. You had, some notable media members, debating with each other, and even amongst drivers too. So after the Monday race at Dover, Kyle Busch and Bob Levine, the car owner for Levine Family Racing, that Matt DiBenedetto drives for, basically alluded to the package, basically saying, yeah, this package sucks, it's terrible, we hate it.
They didn't basically say that. That's exactly what they said.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they said. Kyle Busch was more profanity laced. Levine, his was like, I guess, more, I don't know, should we say constructive maybe, or I don't know, just like there wasn't cussing in it, but
more politically correct.
More politically correct. Kevin Harvick's was a little more constructive, but Harvick did have some comments. He did have some comments on a show today. He was basically alluding to NASCAR, saying like, oh, since the death of Dale Earnhardt, NASCAR really hasn't listened to the drivers. They really haven't, they haven't been a main priority. He said that on his radio show earlier today. And then you had guys like Mark Martin in support of Kyle Busch saying, hey, this is good for the sport. We need more guys like that. But then you had guys like Keselowski saying, it's fine to say to state your piece, but just remember the sport's in a very fragile place. Eric can allude to that in a little bit. But yeah, and then you had guys yesterday like Dave Moody just going on and on. Well, Kyle Busch is only complaining about it because he didn't win, and even Real Radman has some words for him, and then Radman got blocked by him, so that's not a surprise. And then lastly, you had Vince Welch, the lead commentator for the Truck Series, tweet out yesterday that, in the NFL and the NBA, the MLB, if you say something about their league, there's usually fines there, that sort of thing. Like, and he basically said, well, drivers can state their piece, but they have to be really careful about it. I don't know. We got a lot to unpack on this one topic. So, Eric, let's start off with you, man. Was Kyle Busch, were his comments in line?
Well, there's so much here. I'll try to divide it up. I won't talk the whole time. I'll just talk a little bit. But Kyle Busch, in my opinion, it wasn't so much a question of whether or not you agree with the content. If you agree that the package sucks, if you agree it does, or if you disagree, that's not what my argument is. My argument here is there's way better ways to go about stating your issues with the package, your issues with the sport, than the way Kyle Busch chose to do so. He gets out of the car, surrounded by media from all sorts of major media outlets, and just starts cursing and not offering in those initial statements, the ones that were tweeted out, the ones that were publicized, the ones that were basically headlines everywhere you looked, were not constructive and only made NASCAR. It made NASCAR look bad. It didn't make Kyle Busch look bad necessarily. Some people, the haters will hate, the fans won't, but it made NASCAR look bad. And that was my problem with those comments. Kevin Harvick, meanwhile, actually explained more, went a little more detail, actually gave context. And then again, he did on his show today, went a little bit more detail. I think that's perfectly fine. I think people think that I don't like when drivers criticize. I am perfectly fine with drivers criticizing, but when Brad Keselowski makes that point, everything's fragile right now. Anytime you say something, if you say something really boisterous like that, it can have serious repercussions, not just for you, but also for the sport itself. And I think that's what Kyle Busch needs to understand. The beginning of the year, before we'd even seen this aero package on the racetrack yet, he said, and again, feeding the trolls, feeding the tabloids, said, anyone can drive these cars. And yeah, then he went in and actually started to kind of discuss the real issues, and I applaud him for that, but he led it off by, let's say the snappiest, most hot take thing we can possibly say and see if that makes headlines. And I don't like that. I think that's a problem, not just in NASCAR, just in sports. I think it's a problem in news and media across the country, across the world, as too many people go with that route. They want to get clicks, they want to get attention, and that's how they think they need to do it. And I think if everyone can agree that that's not the way to do it, then I think all those people would go away and we'd actually be able to get more important and relevant conversation. So that's really my problem with Kyle Busch's comments. Not necessarily the substance, what he said, it's how he said it. And that's basically it. I think I agreed most with Brad Keselowski saying the sport's fragile and you need to be careful about how you say it, because I don't know, we can talk more detail. I'll go and leave it right there. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Quick question. Do you agree that with Mark Martin's with his comments that NASCAR needs more guys like him? Do you agree with that?
Here's my problem is I like big personalities. I want NASCAR and think NASCAR needs more big personalities, but I prefer when those big personalities are dedicated towards having good relationship with the fans, like Logano going into the crowd during the rain delay, or having rivalries with each other, with other drivers, Earnhardt versus Gordon, et cetera, et cetera. I don't like when driver personality is dedicated towards NASCAR versus or driver versus NASCAR. That's not entertaining to me. I don't want to watch a driver shout at some deformed figure that we never actually see. That's not entertaining to me. That's not the kind of personality I like. So that's where I stand there. I think Mark Martin's right. We do need people that speak their minds, but I don't think it's as valuable today as it was in the mid 2000s when Tony Stewart was known for it. Back then, NASCAR was untouchable. Right now, NASCAR is not in the best place. And I think anything that's said can be used against NASCAR and actually can have a bigger effect than it would have in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, good point. Jarrett?
See, I think he could do it. I think he could say it a lot better too. I agree with what he said for the most part. I don't think I would have been as animated about it had I, unless I was actually in a car like he was. But at the same time, we continuously ask for drivers to show more personality and be more outspoken and say the stuff that the fans want to hear or would want them to say, or just not be afraid to speak their mind. I don't think that whether it's a driver, a fan, or media member is critical of him. I don't think in any way we can want to pick and choose how they're going to say it. We can either have, we can have like how Kevin Harvick explained it. We can have how Brad Keselowski said that he needs to be careful. It's really fragile right now. At the same time, though, it's not Kyle Busch's sole responsibility in watching everything he says to take care of the sport and to cradle it. That right there, that is not being Kyle Busch. I think that a lot of fans who are upset with Kyle Busch wouldn't be upset if it were Dale Jr. saying the same thing. They wouldn't be upset if it were Chase Elliott, and they weren't, and most of them weren't upset through the 90s and in 2000 when Dale Earnhardt was saying the same things. Dale Earnhardt literally came out of the car at the Daytona 500. All he said was that they ruined the racing here at Daytona, and fans love it. Maybe at the time they might have been a little more split with it, but You look on that video on YouTube of Dale Earnhardt saying how they ruined it, and there's a few different comments. I wish we had drivers like this now. There's, wow, he should have said it after X race, mostly like 2011 or 20, whatever, Daytona 500, 2013 Daytona 500. There's a lot of comments about that one, but at the same time, we want another Dale Earnhardt. We're never getting another Dale Earnhardt, but we're getting people that can fit different roles that he fit. And Kyle Busch is that outspoken driver. Now, I don't think he's a leader in any way of the garage, but I think he has every right to say it. And I think a lot of people that are calling for him to get fined, especially Vince Welch, just outright being like, he should be fined.
Yeah, I was wrong.
It's like, well, I had to ask, like, on what grounds? Because if we're talking about the rule, Eric, I saw you talk about the rule of detrimental to stock car racing. That one is such a ball and strike rule that NASCAR can call really anything it wants detrimental.
It's a joke. It's a joke too when you look at the
Joey,
situation.
well, I'm not even going to go on to the package about it. Just about like the pretense of the penalty is like, if we're calling certain things detrimental, but if it's to a point that it's not too negative, it's not detrimental, well, then NASCAR can really control where the line of what people can say or what people think is detrimental. On top of that, also, I would say that, Joey Logano winning last year probably wasn't the best thing for the sport. Could that be, him winning the championship, be considered detrimental to stock car racing? That's what I'm not saying that. No, just hear me out. I'm not saying that like in any way it's ever going to get to that point. What I'm saying is it leaves it open.
Could be a slippery slope. Could be a slippery slope, though. Yeah.
There's too much gray area with that rule. Now, if there's like a specific rule, like, hey, don't cuss when you get out of the car, or if it comes down to it, I hope it doesn't, that, hey, media, like, give them 5 minutes to cool off. Like, sure, then there's a cut and dry rule, but it's like at this point, if NASCAR were to find him, he's just been made into a martyr, and there's going to be even more people mad about it.
Yeah, honestly, if he was fined, there would be like way more problems than there is right now. There'd be a lot more problems than the past couple of days have brought. windVOW, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me tell you, I respect the hell out of Kyle Busch. Let me tell you that. I think he's an incredible driver, and I really appreciate that. He goes out there and he leaves it all out on the track, and he just says what's in his mind. When I first heard it, I was like, yeah, it sounds about right. That sounds like Kyle Busch, and I respect him for him saying his mind. But on the other side of that, I'm like, that's probably not a good look for the sport right now. I don't know, but I feel like it seems like everybody's pretty much on the same page, anyways. That the package is not good, between the drivers and a lot of the fans. So, I think after a while it'll we'll probably forget about it at some point. But I don't know. I just I'm kind of back and forth between it, honestly. But I think going back to somebody mentioned it earlier, some of the drivers, I think most importantly, I like it. You know what? If he's asked about it, go ahead, say what you feel. It might not be the best thing in the world. It might not come out the greatest, but once again, on the other end of that, Kyle Busch is known for saying some stuff. Probably doesn't say it the best sometimes, and some of the ways it comes out. But I don't know. I'm still just kind of torn about it. I don't know.
I want to ask everyone on the panel here today. So NASCAR media, I mean, they're known to, the mainstream NASCAR media is known in years past to basically, to drink NASCAR's Kool-Aid in a sense. So after the race, I just said, Dave Moody was saying, in other words, Kyle Busch is only saying that because he didn't win. Now, what did you guys think of his comments there? Were they in line or were they out of line? Eric, you start us off.
Yeah, I said how Kyle Busch, he's going the making headlines route one way. Dave Moody's doing the exact same thing the other way, and that's my problem with a lot of, the big name NASCAR media is they understand the game the same way Kyle Busch does. You want attention, you want clicks, come up with a quick saying that's very inflammatory and just roll with it. I don't agree with Dave Moody. I don't think the way he really explains very many things is super great or beneficial to sport. I think while some people are too willing to point out every minor flaw and make it a bigger deal than it is within the sport. I think Dave Moody's one of those people that likes to just, rather than say, hey, all right, let's talk about it, he likes to just eliminate all conversation that's contrary to what he believes. And I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't hear his full segment. I just saw some of the things he tweeted, and I disagreed with pretty much all of it.
Jarrett?
Oof. Yeah, I think that what Dave Moody said, Radman said it best. It's very ignorant. I think it's really ignorant of what he said. If there's anyone who should be loving this package, it should be Kyle Busch. I mean, I think something was getting passed around both Twitter and Reddit recently that if you take out just the stages and all the bonus points, and you just look at like where they're finishing in races, Kyle Busch is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody in points when it comes to that. Now it's a little closer. It's him and Logano really close, but he's leading the points. He's just tied a record for top tens consecutively.
With Morgan Shepherd, by the way.
With Morgan Shepherd. And I'll be honest, until somebody brought it up, I did not realize Morgan Shepherd owned that record. So
the GOAT.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
1990 was a good year for him.
Rollerbladed his way to 11 straight top tens, I think, at what they said. But when it comes to Dave Moody and the ignorance of his comments, I mean, I think all you have to do, and a lot of people showed, is just go back to after he won in the COT in 2007. I can't stand to drive them. They suck. Like, Kyle Busch won that race fair and square. He, if of anyone who should be just hyping it up, it should have been Kyle Busch. And he showed right there that even when he does well, he's not going to, just say that he likes something because he does well. And I think he continued even to say some things about the COT until NASCAR shut him up. And I'd say through 2007 all the way through 2012, he was in the top 2 or 3 of best drivers with the COT era. So
I also just realized, has Kyle Busch ever been fined for anything he's ever said? No, right? He's never been fined, has he?
When he flicked off the official at Texas, did he get fined for that?
Well, yeah, like for anything he said though. Has he?
Yeah, same thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
he said it in sign language.
Yeah. He's bilingual Bush.
Yeah, yes. Now, when it comes to Dave Moody, again, I'm going to keep going in on this. I think that media, as unfair as it probably is to them, and as someone who even is looking to go into media, as unfair as it would be to me, I think media should be held to a higher standard than the drivers when it comes to what they say, especially when it's a little further removed from the race itself. And Dave Moody has proven time and time again that if you don't agree with his way, you're a bloodthirsty fan, you're an ignorant fan, you're a stupid young people, or you're blocked. I do not like the fact that we have to keep talking about Dave Moody, but if it means that I get to point out how completely incorrect he is about virtually everything he says, I'm more than willing to do so. Because to be completely honest, Dave Moody, the only person that can please Dave Moody is Dave Moody. Nobody else, it seems, can say anything that Dave Moody actually likes. I'd be more than willing to have him on here sometime, and I will leave an open invitation for him to be on here anytime he wants.
Come on the show, Dave.
Oh, seriously, I would like to pick his brain, because to be completely honest, I don't understand where he comes from for the most part.
No, I agree with what you just said, Jared. I mean, I feel like especially nowadays in today's NASCAR, like, fans need to be having these open dialogues, these open conversations, just about anything and everything. And that's a great thing about this, about our podcast too. The panel, we have a bunch of different opinions, and also our guests, they have different opinions. And then even the chat, I see them going off in the chat. They're debating in there for a little bit over certain topics during our past streams. And I feel like with Dave Moody's show, like, even Danny was on there. Danny, he even called in one time, and Danny had made a comment like, "Oh, this is Danny B from the world of YouTube," and then Dave Moody was just absolutely rude. It was like, "Oh, I don't know what that is," and then Danny B later tweeted at him, and then Dave Moody in such a I guess a salty reply was like, "Oh, sorry, I have such big media connections over here. I totally forgot you guys exist. Like, you kids have fun," like something like that. I'm just like, really, like that's professional. That's NASCAR media. Not all, but like, he's a big part of NASCAR media there. So I don't really think he's the best look.
because everybody nowadays is tuning into the radio.
Yeah, the radio.
Oh, wait. It's like, seriously, dude, if you're gonna like start flexing on people for like the new age media, and you're sitting there on the radio, it's like, okay, man, you do that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, I feel like Dave, if he were more open to having a discussion, then it would be great. I feel like he sort of fits in with those older NASCAR fans that kind of shoot you down if you're, I guess, quote unquote, a millennial, younger, or you haven't been watching racing as long as they have. And I feel like that's a main issue too. Is NASCAR fans and media, we say, dang, like we want new fans in the sport, but then once those new fans are there, we shut them down. I see it happen all the time. It's like, oh, well, you haven't been watching racing as long as me, so your opinion doesn't matter. That's how you lose fans right there. I feel like that's the wrong way to go about it, in my opinion.
I can say that just from my experience going into the sport, had my grandpa, uncle, or parents continuously shut me down and said how stupid I was because, oh, you're asking this or you're thinking this, guarantee I wouldn't have watched. Now, granted, it's much different with family than media. I would no way would say that I have that close of a connection to Dave Moody. But I mean, it's like the chat right here said, Dave Moody equals the Colin Cowherd, except Cowherd actually has some facts and logic to his rudeness. He's a rude person, but he at least backs up his rudeness. Dave Moody doesn't. I mean, I distinctly remember, and this is why I'm not as big a fan of his as I probably ever could have, is after the Martinsville race in 2015. I was there. It was awesome when Kenseth put Logano into the wall. It was amazing. The whole stands came up. Matt Kenseth was the most popular driver that day, and I'm a Dale Jr. fan saying this. And immediately going home and listening on the radio about how bloodthirsty I was because we were the fans they were cheering for somebody being attempted murder, and they're just bloodthirsty fans. They don't belong in our sport.
Attempted murder with these race cars. Yeah, these race cars nowadays.
Yes, Dave. That is a perfect way to continuously keep the people who just had fun, who just love this race. That's a perfect way to keep them around. It's like that's why I said they should be media. I think media members have a much more important role during the week, at least, and when it comes to narratives than drivers do, because the drivers just say it, whereas the media has to report on it. And when you have people like Dave Moody being the people that you see, or Bromberg being the people you see compared to somebody like Matt Weaver or Jeff Gluck, it's not a good look to the sport. That's why I appreciate so much what Weaver and Gluck and a few of those other, and Pockrass and a lot of people who they're willing to put their minds out there, but at the same time, when you are somebody who is in charge of spreading that narrative more than just on Sunday, I think that you need to be held to a higher standard.
No, absolutely. windVOW?
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't think I'd heard the quote up until one of you guys mentioned it. I honestly, I really don't know much about Dave Moody, and I don't think I want to anymore, honestly. But no, I honestly, I completely agree with all you guys. I think it's just a bunch of BS, honestly. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right. And I guess the last thing I want to ask you guys, Vince Welch's his comments. What do you guys think about that, Eric? What were your thoughts on his comments? Was he right, or was he just kind of sounded crazy there?
It's wrong, and now he didn't directly say this, but it is wrong for a member of the media, I guess, to sort of suggest
want someone
that he's
fined, right?
Yes, that is where he's wrong. But I will say I'm surprised. I'm not going to say I wanted Kyle Busch to be fined, but if he had been fined, I would not have been upset about it. And I'm very surprised they didn't find him, given their track record of finding people for honestly saying significantly less than I think Kyle Busch said. So I was surprised they didn't find him. And that's kind of, I know Vince Welch tweeted that before we knew if he was going to be fined or not, but that's kind of felt like his reaction. He does make a point. I think in the NBA, most NBA fans can agree, NBA officials are annoying. They suck. The officiating in the NBA makes it hard to watch sometimes.
Worse than the NFL sometimes.
Yeah, and almost every week, a player gets fined for criticizing the officials, but nobody talks about it. Nobody comes out and says like, "Oh, but he just spoke his mind. Like, how dare you quash that free speech? The officials do suck." Like, no NBA fans do that, even though it feels like they should, because I feel like universally, I have never met an NBA fan who thinks the officiating is good. So why is NASCAR? Why I know it's comparing two different sports again and two different fan bases, but it's the same country. It's still a lot of crossover there. It's like if they had fined Kyle Busch, why would there have been uproar?
Just
I mean,
to
he
fine
said
him?
something that I think all of us agreed he could have said better. I don't think not necessarily that we disagree with the message, but most of us kind of disagree with how he said it. Why would we? It's not coming out of our pockets. Why do we care if a guy who makes millions of dollars a year gets fined $20,000?
I wouldn't like it because I mean just because and I haven't liked it in years past too. Just I mean
That's fair.
I mean I see other athletes who are very critical of let's say the NFL and the NBA, and I don't really see them getting as fined as much. But then like the moment you say something about NASCAR, especially during the Brian France regime, you got slapped with a fine. I mean, 2013, Denny Hamlin, he didn't even say anything like remotely negative about the cars. He just says, "Oh, well, it's just gonna take time. It's not as good as I hoped." And he had to pay, I think it was like $100,000 fine, somewhere in that range, but something ridiculous when he was just saying his opinion there. And I don't know, I just feel like no matter how you say it, unless you're attacking maybe one of the officials personally or something like that, or like one of the heads of NASCAR personally, like I don't think it's that big of an issue to get fined over. Now, of course, if you're cussing on TV or as Kyle Busch has done, flipping officials off, then yeah, I think that crosses the line and they need to be dealt with. But just for saying your very own opinion, I don't know. I don't think that's worthy enough to get fined over. Jarrett?
See, with the Vince Welch thing, I think I touched upon it earlier, upon just what he said earlier and about how media should be held to a bit of a higher standard. And I just had to ask, I mean, I think not ask, I'll just flatly say, I think it goes back personally to something I think we were all told at a young age is, oh, you see everyone else do it, you do it. Well, I mean, if your friends jump off a bridge or jam a cactus up their butt, are you going to do that?
Jam a cactus up what?
Yeah. Well, no, that's a grade A under A. He's like,
okay.
If your friends jumped off a bridge or jammed a cactus up your ass, would you do it too?
I never heard
That's
that.
the thing. Yeah, that's the thing right there. It's like if the rest of the people do it, then does it make complete sense that we have to do it too? Now, I understand where it comes from. I'll personally tell you right now, I was exceptionally surprised when I heard that they weren't going to be fining him.
Oh,
I was really happy.
I was happy too.
Oh, and ass is not a curse word; it's a mild language. Ass is in the Bible, so I can say it.
If it's in the Bible, it's fine.
I mean, I don't like media members having like that, like calling for somebody to get fined, kind of, because that's what I mean. Well, I mean, he wasn't outright being like Kyle Busch needs to be fined. He was going that direction, like he needs to be fined. Like, dude, like your job is to report. Your job is not to go out there and try and tell people how it should go. Personally, if you want my stance on it, I think that people shouldn't be fined for an opinion unless it's an opinion that could be a call or a veiled threat. Yeah. So like Kurt Busch, for instance, saying it refrains me from beating the out of you.
About
that right there, that is finable. Yeah. That is very finable. You should not be threatening people. You should not be threatening members of the media. And that's very, like I said, that's very finable. Now, what Kyle Busch said, not the way I'd say it, but I'm not Kyle Busch. So long story short, I don't like when media members start calling for NASCAR to make certain decisions without having first reported on it.
Well, I don't know. I've never heard anyone say, yeah, he should have been fined. Like, he deserves it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Just stuff like that's just crazy to me. I don't know. That's what I think. But, Michael, what are your thoughts?
Vince Welch. I don't like him.
The famous Truck Series commentator, the greatest of all time, right?
I got beef with him, man. I think he should be fined for being a horrible commentator, but that's my 2 cents. With that being said, I think he's totally wrong. But yeah, that's really about it.
Damn, that's worse than. Oh god, I was thinking about saying that, but then I was like, no, like I don't know what to. Then our guest says it, so it's all right. But oh man, that'll go up there with famous NASCAR Weekly Podcast sound bites. But
Jamming a cactus up your butt's gonna
yeah,
go
yeah,
up on one.
yeah.
Too.
So that's a close second. It's a close second to that for sure.
If you were to jump off a bridge or jam a cactus up your ass, would you do it too?
Right. All right. So looking at the podcast, we are 1 hour in. We have 217 people watching, but only 101 likes. Make sure to lick the like button, guys. Let's get it up to 200 before the end of the stream. That would be pretty awesome. And I know I said I would look into super chats. Jared, do you want to do a rapid fire segment maybe to some things we haven't talked about yet, or?
It's a monsoon outside. Good lord!
Oh, it's raining. Yeah, it's
I heard this thing like against the window, and I'm like, "What? A bird hit it?" And I'm like, "No, the rain hit it." Anyway,
Yeah, it finally stopped raining over here. Goodness.
Anyway, yeah, you transferred it over here. Thanks
Apparently.
Yeah.
a lot. Okay, so rapid fire, and rapid fire. I mean, I'll bring something up, and we'll talk about it for a minute or two.
Yeah.
And rapid fire it more.
Go ahead.
So, jeez. So, one thing I want to ask you guys about, what are your thoughts on the vortex theory? Because that was brought up a lot.
It's true.
I'm sick of this. It's beating a dead horse. I'm so tired of this talk. Oh my god.
Even Mike Joy told someone like to basically like F off.
Yeah,
like, I can't remember what the exact tweet was, and I was like,
he's the last guy I would expect to do that.
Well, yeah, the tweet he was replying to is some. Here's my thing. I don't really understand the start of this whole meme. I don't think it's really real, but what's the harm in joking about it? Like they did on Sunday. They kind of made an obvious joke about it. And some people on Twitter took it really seriously. Like, look at them. They're just making stuff up, trying to misinform the viewer. And that's what Mike Joy went after him. Like, what are you doing?
I saw that.
Mike
Yeah, that was
Joy,
stupid.
what are you doing, man?
So I don't know if it's true or not. I just think it's I don't mind them talking about it, especially if it's DW talking about it. It's like his own little inside joke, especially as long as he's talking about it as a joke. Because I don't know that it's probably not true, but
Yeah.
it's just it's funny. Like I don't understand why is so like there's some people on Twitter were actually mad. They're like they're getting all of our hopes up. Like the race is actually going to happen when they know damn well that it's not going to happen today. Like what are they doing? It's like
This is NASCAR fans today, man. I mean, I love NASCAR fans to death, but sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, it just makes all of us look bad, man. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, I mean, it's not that serious. I mean, even Jeff Gluck was he was joking about it a little bit. I mean, he also said like, well, it's not true, but you know, like, you know, here they go, they're talking about it again, that sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like people taking it serious, they got some issues, man. If you're really taking it that serious and stuff, I think you got a lot more problems than you're letting on there. So, honestly, but windVOW, you're saying it's true though. Do you have any evidence to back that up?
Okay, so I have two pieces of evidence to submit. First up, what was it? The spring Martinsville race last year. I was there the year it snowed. Or snowed. It didn't really snow too bad, but anyways, we can blame Mike Seneca for stopping the vortex theory. As soon as he stopped and caused that caution, it started snowing and sleeting and raining a little bit.
Wow.
I'm telling you. And Richmond this year, there was no way that Xfinity race was going to get in. I was there, and I was looking at the clouds, and I was looking at the radar. There was no way. And even Richmond has a screenshot. I saw him tweet it out. You could see Richmond on the map, and like there's rain all around it, but not at the track. And somehow we got that entire race in. I'm a firm believer. The vortex theory is real.
Wow. Chat and let us know what you think.
the fact that my feet are still soaked from 2013 in Chicagoland makes me a firm vortex theory denier.
Or even Vegas 2016 when you had not only rain, it was cloudy, rain, you had wind everywhere. It was a freaking dust storm everywhere. So forget the vortex theory.
7 horsemen of the apocalypse rode through.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. That was a crazy race. I was happy to be there though. So that's crazy. What other topics? What other topics, Jared?
This one can be a little shorter. Dale Jr. did not yell slide job at the Kentucky Derby during the actual race, but there was a penalty in that, blocking. But so it confirms that the Kentucky Derby is just a stepping stone for IndyCar. Much to Rusty Walrus's glee, Denny Hamlin had to go to the infield care center for carbon monoxide poisoning.
I don't know if Rusty what's death to Denny. I don't know if it's
we were gonna talk about that more on later on in the show and stuff too. Yeah.
All right. Good Lord, there's not actually that much to talk about because all the stuff we're actually going to talk. There's not much for a rapid fire.
Okay, if you don't have anything else, just stop it there.
single car quals came
Okay.
back.
Oh, yeah.
So I, that's pretty good.
Oh yeah, dude. Like on Friday, I don't know. Just like watching single car qualifying on Friday, it just brought back that feeling I had when I was a little kid. You know, I would come home from school, I would get off the bus, run in the house, and then immediately turn on speed, and they would play the little intro they usually do with the speed music and graphics, and then watch single car qualifying. I don't know, it's just something about single car qualifying, man. It's
Except it was a little more rapid fire than the rapid fire section we're having.
Well, yeah, and Eric, Eric tweeted about that, and I definitely liked it because like in those days, it would take forever. They would have like I remember Atlanta 2004, fall of 2004, 68 cars qualified. It took like 2 or 3 hours to get all those cars qualified because like they would have them run the warm up laps and then okay, green flag, all right, take your 2 laps, and then most of them took 2 laps. Like I feel like that is a procedure that NASCAR should have implemented back in those days.
Yeah, I liked how quick it paced it was. They did a really good job, kind of what they've done at super speedway races to make their form of single car qualifying somewhat watchable the last few years. That's what they brought to Dover. Now, the qualifying was pretty entertaining. Like I said, I think at tracks a mile and shorter, single car qualifying will still be kind of entertaining because the driver's inputs really come into play. We saw during qualifying how I know Kurt Busch slipped up big on his lap, and it's like, okay, you'll see that at short tracks, but with this aero package at least. At a mile and a half, you're not going to see that very much. I don't think it's going to be very entertaining. This weekend at Kansas, I don't think single car is going to be that fun to watch. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think it will. But Dover was nice.
I want to say this: the greatest single car qualifying session ever. I was actually at 2007 Las Vegas Motor Speedway. They just redid the track. They just added banking. There was like 9 or 10 spins and / crashes in that qualifying section. So,
was there a giant orange on the track in turn 4?
Wait, say that again.
Was there a giant balloon orange on the track?
No, that's overrated. There was just a freaking orange there. That was the speedway being stupid and all that stuff. No, Vegas by far. 2007 Las Vegas, the greatest single car qualifying section ever in NASCAR history by far. Hopefully somebody upload that. I can't find it uploaded on YouTube. Please, somebody, Dave W, King Cova, like any one of those race uploaders, please upload that so I can rewatch it again, man. Good time.
Well, that's the only person that has it is Jay Coker or whatever.
Oh no. Then in that case, no, just keep it. I don't want it.
I will say though, I am very curious about how qualifying will be this week, just because I'm wondering, since you can have your qualifying trim and it's only gonna be like 1 lap. Like how far to the edge are some of the crew chiefs going to go just to get that that little skosh of extra speed, I guess. Like, I'm very curious if the cars are going to drive a lot different in qualifying compared to the race, especially when they're setting up for 1 lap instead of 267. So that's why I'm curious about it, but I'd probably be on sort of similar with you, Eric, where it probably isn't going to be the most exciting thing ever, but if I had to pick between that and what it was with everyone waiting on pit road, I'll take single car boringness over
all day.
a mile and a half over it. So
all day.
But I'm still very curious about what it's actually going to be. And yes, I am like Darrell Waltrip, as Fish Production says, skosh. No one else
Good
at my
terminology.
school. Yeah, no one else at my school's ever understood that. They're like, what's a skosh? I'm like, I'm not exactly sure. But
all right.
So yeah, so basically we just got a few big main points left that we can't rapid fire.
All right. So I'm gonna read some super chats really quick. Steam's Dev with the $5 super chat. Thanks, man. He says, "Hey, just wanted to say that I love what you guys do. Keep up the good work, guys. So really appreciate that." And then John Smith with 2 $1 super chats equaling out to $2. So basically, I should have just said a $2 one big $2 super chat there. So thanks, man. And then the other White Castle with the $1.99 super chat says his question is, have you guys seen Cole Custard's cold custard review? I saw one. He had tweeted out a video, I think, a month ago. I don't know if he's done any more though, because I don't follow him. But I don't know. It's one review. It's pretty cool, and it's smart. It's very smart marketing wise too. He's having a good season, and cold custard. Doing a little cold custard reviews and stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I haven't seen him either, but it's fun. Makes the drivers look relatable, I
They
guess.
have
I don't.
personalities. They have
Yeah,
personalities. If you didn't know, now you know. So yeah, so that'd be good to see. I guess speaking of Cole Custer for a little bit, he's having a pretty good year. He's not leading the standings, but he's won a couple races so far at Fontana and Fontana and Richmond. So he's putting together a pretty solid season. So we'll have to wait and see if that'll translate into the Cup Series. All right, so I just got the
Oh,
I got the chat back up, but all right, so I'm good.
we got one more super chat from
I
some
do?
Jake Bass guy.
Oh, Jake Basinger, how's it going, man? Eric, you still owe me my $2 at Bristol. I don't.
I'll be honest. I still don't know what he's talking about.
Did you steal $2 from him over stream?
if that's what happens when they voluntarily click the super chat button, I guess.
I don't know. I don't know. Tell us what you're talking about, Jake, but in the chat there later on, and we'll see it. All right. So moving on. So right after the race at Dover on Monday, Jason Whitlock, the host of the show Speak for Yourself on FS1, he told fans, NASCAR fans, to immediately stay after because he was going to discuss Bubba Wallace, who is a hot topic, even though, which is still baffling to me in some ways. Dude's he's 28th in the standings, has an average finish of 25.7, has I want to say eight DNFs in the past 2 seasons. You know, honestly, that's somebody we probably shouldn't be talking about a whole lot, but we are though. That's how big he is in the sport, and that's how important he is. So Jason Whitlock during the show was alluding to the fact that corporate America is not supporting Bubba Wallace, and he found it very amusing to him. He found it very odd. He was basically alluding to the fact that NASCAR, they've made huge strides with their diversity program over the past decade, and he's basically saying diversity is such a huge thing in everything, not just motorsports or sports in general, just everywhere you go. Companies want to hire more minorities and that sort of thing too for their workforces, and you want more. You just want diversity everywhere. Everything has to be diverse, and I think that's a really good goal right there. But he was basically saying he just found it funny how Bubba Wallace is not being approached by sponsors and that sort of thing. And then he also alluded to the fact that, and his quote was exactly this: "Why is a quarterback who hasn't played in 3 to 4 years getting a $3 million deal with Nike, but Bubba Wallace isn't?" He's basically he was basically talking about Colin Kaepernick there and his huge Nike deal he got last fall, even though he has not played it down since 2016. So Eric, start us off. Was Jason Whitlock in this case right?
I mean, he's got the right idea. I think he obviously doesn't watch NASCAR regularly. He omits for the most part. He doesn't bring up enough of the behind the scenes factors. The fact that
he is a fan though. I just want to point out really quick. He is a fan. He is from Kansas. He was a huge fan of Cale Yarborough and stuff. And then
I can believe that. I can believe he's watched, but I don't think he watches more than a couple races a year these days. But that being said, I think he gets it a little bit. But he omits the fact that I don't think if Bubba Wallace was running in the top 20, I think he'd draw more support from people. The problem is I think Bubba Wallace, I think that team is hurting him more than anything else. But I think Whitlock brings up a good point. I think his point about Kaepernick is just, I mean, if you poll everybody in the United States, nobody's going to know who Bubba Wallace is. Everybody's going to know who Colin Kaepernick is. So that's a bad point. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's unfortunate. The fact that an active athlete isn't getting the support that I guess semi-retired out of work athletes getting, that's definitely not right. But that's just the way celebrity is in America these days, and celebrity sells. So, I mean, we've talked about Bubba Wallace. We've talked about Richard Petty Motorsports. I think the problem with that 43 car is 60 to 70% Richard Petty Motorsports and only 40% Bubba. I don't think Bubba Wallace is a championship driver in the Cup Series, probably ever. I think he can be a decent Cup driver. I don't think Bubba's a great Cup driver. I think he's a solid Xfinity driver. I think he's a below average Cup driver. I mean, just caused the first big wreck at Talladega a couple weeks ago, last week or just yesterday. Really didn't see any big wrecks in that race, but one of the worst instances we saw was when Bubba just ran over Priest. It was a little bit Priest's fault, but Bubba, I don't know what he's doing there. It's just,
yeah.
I know he's in bad equipment, but he definitely isn't making that equipment look any better than it is. He's not making it look good. Let me put it that way. So I'd love to see him get some support, and I think that's the problem. It's he's trapped in a circle here. He needs money to run good, but you also need to run good to get that money. And right now he's not doing the first thing, so it's just not working out for him.
Well, here's my point I want to make here. So someone on Twitter alluded to the fact that, well, in his truck and Xfinity Series days, he was running pretty solid there, but he was having trouble with sponsorship. Like, what do you have to say to that? And I just want to point this out. To my point, the way he has been marketed his whole career by his marketing team or for whatever team he's driven for in NASCAR has been wrong. I don't think they're marketing, the black. I don't think they're really marketing him to the black community enough, man. If I go outside and ask like maybe 5 or 10 black people who Bubba Wallace is, maybe only like 2 or 3 will actually know who he is.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, like honestly. But my thing is, they need to target black communities more. They need to target black businesses, black communities, black influencers outside of the sport. Get them into these, on these black shows, man. Just like mostly black, you need to freaking run with it. I mean, he's the only black dude in the entire sport. Well, I mean, the only one in the Cup Series right now. Jesse Iwuji runs part-time in trucks on a part-time basis, and I feel like Bubba, in that sense, is being marketed very, very wrong. But then also it really doesn't help that he's like 28th in the standings, and he's not even finishing inside the top 20 in every race, that sort of thing. But I feel like Bubba's he's in a very good situation right now, and I feel like we're not seeing it. What I mean by that is the bar is so low. If Bubba gets a very decent ride, and if he runs like top 15, if he starts clicking off top 15, top 10 runs from now on, he's going to automatically become superstar just because of how low the bar was set in these previous years he's been driving for Richard Petty Motorsports. I feel like once that happens, once he starts barely making the playoffs, the sponsors will come rolling in, the guest star appearances will start rolling in, and also he'll get a much bigger social media following as well too. So he doesn't necessarily have to win races in this situation. So I guess that's the one positive I'm getting from this. And there's not that many, but I don't know, that's just the way I feel on it. Jared,
it's not one other thing, it's not like Bubba isn't getting no sponsorship. Obviously he's had some issues. The 43 team has had issues holding on to people.
They have to scratch each week though for sponsorship. That's the thing.
Yes, but I mean, Bubba this year, he's been on, I think it was like Good Morning America or something like that before the season started. He was also on that show with Kevin Hart. So he's getting some big name opportunities. And then I think going back to what you talked about getting opportunities, I think he had didn't have any sponsorship troubles when he was with Kyle Busch Motorsports. When he got to Roush, he had sponsorship issues a little bit, and they obviously closed down. He wasn't running great at Roush. He wasn't contending for wins very often at Roush. And I think also Roush historically has not been good at helping their drivers get sponsorship. Matt Kenseth left because they couldn't put the points they couldn't give the points leader a full-time sponsored deal. Like Kenseth couldn't. The year 2012, he won 3 races, led the points for most of the regular season. A third of his races were unsponsored. I think that's why he left for Gibbs. That's why Edwards ultimately left for Gibbs, because sponsorship issue. That's why Biffle, when his contract ran out, they couldn't find a room for him because they didn't have sponsorship for that 16 car. Roush has historically had an issue. I think Bubba Wallace, the best opportunity he ever had was when he was with Kyle Busch. And unfortunately, we've seen so many great drivers come through Kyle Busch and go elsewhere. He just went the wrong direction. And I don't think he knew it at the time. And I don't even know if he had a real option there. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. Jared?
I'm sort of on the same page that both of you guys are. First, I like that Whitlock was willing to put that on his show. I think he was capitalizing on the NASCAR audience being there. NASCAR has proven to be one of the more watched aspects of FS1. I did not like that he had to draw in talk with Bubba and talk about NASCAR in with more or less his political views. If you see anything of him outside of sports, you know that was a political move right there, which I found really dumb. But when it comes to him marketing, I think that it started with him at Roush, and it was just bad marketing. While he did well at Kyle Busch Motorsports, his results, they weren't where a lot of other people's were. They
not
weren't like
championship, not on a championship level.
No. And to be quite honest, when you're driving for Kyle Busch in the truck series, you should be competing for championships. You have the best trucks, you have the most funding. Even if you don't have sponsorship, you still have the most funding with Kyle Busch. So his results didn't really show there. Now, he did win with the sponsorless truck. I'm not saying he has no talent. I think people saying that he's a D-level driver or even a low C-level driver are completely out of whack on that one. I think that he excels and can be a B-level driver, high B-level driver.
Top 10, top 15 driver.
If he were to put together a perfect race, I think it would be the low end of an A-level driver's normal races. But that being said, that he has talent. He has plenty of talent. But when you don't perform on teams that you look at Roush, and while he wasn't going for wins there, he still was in the top. He had got his car in the top 10 in owners points and him in the top 10 in points before that team Kaplunk, and they were struggling with sponsorship. Now you look at, so that team was on a downward trend. Now you look at Richard Petty, and that team is on a downward trend, and a very sharp downward trend. So he's not going to perform. Then you also look at how he's, like you were saying, Darian, how he's been marketed. You know, he's not been marketed to audiences that would really be like, it would make a difference to. He's just, you know, I mean, and I think on top of that, that just you have bad marketing with somebody else, with Richard Petty Motorsports, who we've said time and time again they cannot adapt to modern NASCAR. They can't. They're going off handshake deals, so sponsorship is going to be iffy at all times. I mean, even STP has jumped off. I don't really know what the answer is at this point, other than maybe hit the reset button.
Well,
go back,
also,
finish your trucks, and get some new people to help market you.
Also, remember the whole Danny B situation with this whole GoFundMe thing. Like, I mean, even Richard Petty Motorsports shot that down.
Well, and I can understand at least where they're coming from, but the reason they gave for it basically is that we don't take any fan funding.
Why not?
You have people literally offering you money. Why would you not take it?
I don't know. Maybe because it's a bad look to them. I'm not really sure. I mean, you guys are struggling for money, so like at this point, like get it wherever you can get it. Right?
If somebody said that they would pay $1 million, let's say,
to the podcast,
but no, if they're a fan and here's me struggling as a race car owner, and they're like, all right, we'll give you enough money to fund a race on one condition. You put the picture of Randy Moss mooning Packer fans on your hood. I'd do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, by the way, he's a Vikings fan, in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah. I mean, we can, okay, I'll be objective here. Let's put a picture of the butt fumble on the car.
There you go.
I don't care.
I like that more.
Like, if somebody has the money and is ready to go, like, and I know, and we can verify with that person that I'm gonna have the money. I don't care if they're a fan. I'm taking it. I don't care if they were like, hey, I'm a urinating tree fan, so every few minutes be like, you need to be like urinating trees Giants video and go derp derp derp. I'd do it every 3 laps. I'd go on TV and just say derp, because at this point it's pay to play. It's like Eric, you were saying, it's that self-destructive cycle of you need money to do well, but to do well, you need money to do well, but to get that money you need to do well. So it's just like, at this point it's just a slow spiral down. Like I said, I don't know what the solution is at this point, other than just hit the reset button. Maybe take a year off and race somewhere else. You know, maybe do something like that. Maybe go down to the Xfinity and truck level. I don't know. I think he needs new people around him to market him, because they obviously aren't doing their job. I mean, if you're this is one of the few drivers who's going on mainstream news shows and talk shows, and you can't find him sponsorship. I know that Richard Petty Motorsports has something to do with it, but on top of that, I'm like, you're telling me there can't be some outside deals you're doing?
Hell,
he's on a handshake deal. He can pretty much do whatever he wants outside of the sport.
Hell, even Jesse Iwuji's probably doing better. That has better funding than Bubba at this point, probably. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
It's sad. It really is, because he's a much better driver than he's putting out right now. He's putting out there, and on top of that, you know, I mean, if he sticks with Richard Petty for another 2 or 3 years, I honestly think it'll sink his career. I don't think we're going to see him be like an Alex Bowman or Ross Chastain, where he performed bad to start his career, but he got that lucky break. I think that he's got to get out soon, or he's gonna be another one of those drivers that 10 years from now we look back and go, I wish he could have done so much better. I wish I wish things would have went right for that kid, kind of thing. So.
Yeah. So let's get a Cup Series champions perspective on this. The 2006 champions in NASCAR Thunder 2004. What do you think?
Well, from my experience, you wanna take care of the car and not tear it up. That's the biggest part. I think Bubba's obviously had some issues
Wait,
there before.
hold on. You've gotten in some pretty big wrecks on NASCAR Thunder.
No, you're very right. You're very right. So I should know. You definitely gotta not crash the dang car. But
still,
yeah,
Aaron's decided to stay with you. I don't know why, but no, it was fine. Go ahead.
we bounced back. But anyways, yeah, no, I see it. It really sucks because Bubba's one of those kind of guys that he's the kind of driver you want in the Cup Series, right? He's got a great personality. For me, I've always been kind of hard on him because I didn't think he was really all that great. I still don't. However, obviously he doesn't have the car, he doesn't have the funding right now. I'd like to see where he could go with that, with the right resources. I think with you guys, a lot of you guys said that, what's the solution? Well, we don't know, but I think at least for him, man, it's tough because he's had a lot of those like freak incidents, but he's also had a lot of kind of boneheaded kind of practice mistakes and stuff that took him out and destroyed a car. Like how many cars did he tear up at the Roval? Like he was having a hell of a time there.
I think it was 2 he tore up. I think, or it was just 1.
Oh, it's 3.
And going back to when I think of him, I was thinking of what was it, Sonoma? I mean, he was almost lost at Sonoma.
He's bad.
Just it's stuff like that. I don't know if that's totally the answer. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes of why companies won't hop on board. But I mean that's about the easiest thing you can do is run well, keep the car clean, do as best you can, and most importantly, don't tear up the car. Yeah. So I don't know.
Of course. All right, so moving on. Denny Hamlin, after the race on Monday, was treated for carbon monoxide poisoning. He needed some oxygen after the race. Apparently, he got bumped into, and that led to some carbon monoxide being filled in his own cockpit there. This isn't the first time. I believe Johnny Benson back in Talladega of 2002 had something similar happen to him, and he had to go to the hospital down there during after the race. So this begs the question. So like NASCAR is they're pretty prone on safety. They've been it's been a main priority for them for like the past 2 decades. Is this something that NASCAR could possibly fix, or is this just another thing that's out of their control?
I think I should look into it. I'll be honest, I know that it doesn't happen very often, but I have noticed, especially in the time of the Gen 6, it seems to be again, I don't keep track of it. I can't remember the last few times it's happened, but I can recall that in recent memory, it seems to happen a little more. And I think that's something that NASCAR should start testing out and should start checking for, is because, Hamlin really, I think it was a flat tire or something, and or something about that. Might have been him hitting somebody, but that's something that, in my opinion, if NASCAR just looked into a little more, and they probably are, and probably, I don't have the insight on it here, but if they looked into it more, I think that's something they could fix, and that's something that's, I think, completely preventable if more precaution could be taken. I don't want to see drivers having that kind of reaction of getting out of a car and needing medical attention for something that more than likely should be completely preventable.
Oh, and also the chat was saying the last one, and I did forget about this. Kyle Busch 2017 after Charlotte, he needed some oxygen after the race. So, Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't remember if the Kyle Busch thing was for the same exact deal. It might have been. It feels like it's something that can be preventable, but it also does not happen. It doesn't happen very often, so at least we have that to be okay with. I think it happened during that flat tire, cut some hose loose. I don't know how it works. Cut something loose there, but yeah, I don't know. I have a strong opinion on it. I'm glad he was okay. Glad they at least, NASCAR has great medical teams. They were able to get right over there and help him out. They had oxygen tank, right there on standby, ready for him. So At least they managed it the best they could. I'll give Denny Hamlin credit. That race sucked. If you're Denny Hamlin, man, first half you're going backwards because the car is terrible. Second half you're getting gassed. Like, I don't know, literally. So I honestly gained some respect for Hamlin.
He spun as well. He was working his way back inside the top 10. Had a flat tire. Then Rusty Walrus was laughing on Twitter. That sort of thing, as he always is when Hamlin's.
Yeah, I'm glad he's okay. I don't know. They definitely look into it. Maybe it's as simple as just add a little small panel or something there. I don't know.
Michael.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things. On one side I'm like, there's got to be something they can do about it, right? But on the other end, I mean, it's usually created by like a tire going down, and it clips the crush panel open, and it lets it off in there. Just at the rate, especially at some of those guys, how they lose a tire and it just shreds like half of the car. Like moments like that, I'm like, how could you do anything about that? But because I mean, some of those cars, they've just been completely torn apart, and it was something like that where it wasn't even really that bad, and you still had that issue. So, and, on one end, I'm sure they could probably do something about it. On the other end, it doesn't happen a lot, and I feel like it would be something that's kind of hard to prevent. So, I don't know.
Yeah, good points all around there. So in some more lighthearted news, the Busch Beers millennial car. The friggin' millennial car, it's happening. It doesn't look exactly the way that the original one was supposed to. It's pink.
Thank goodness.
The Busch, the big Busch logo on the hood has Busch AF, like as fuck, and then you have emojis on the side of it, that sort of thing. I think there was like one where like the turtle was like, or like the frog was like sipping the tea there, and then like you have emojis on the back saying like, oh, like turnt and all that stuff, and like have little like wave signs and peace signs, that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh god. It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be though. Jarrett, what do you think?
It sucks.
Oh come on.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
It's not that bad.
Yes, it is.
No, wait, hold on. Let me ask
Original.
Let me ask a very important question. Is it better than Chase Elliott's throwback scheme last year?
No.
It's not. Dang, that's really dang.
Wow, you really hate
Wow,
that.
you really hate it then. You really hate it.
I'll be honest. As much as I think that we should market to younger people. Granted, millennials are not the younger people anymore. It's Gen Z. Thank God, because I'm not really a fan of millennial culture. I'll be honest. I'm not. I hate it. And I hate this car, and I hope it crashes. And I'm pretty sure Kevin Harvick thinks it crashes too. You want me to be honest? I'm going to be honest. I do not like this car, and why the hell is there not a Stonehead on it?
Oh, there is a
Stonehead.
Stonehead.
Room, and there's not one on that car.
Speaking of Stoneheads, but yeah.
0 out of 10.
Yeah. But Eric, what do you think?
Yeah,
Is this car as bad as Jared's making it out to be?
No. Well, no, I don't think it's quite that bad. It's definitely. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not gonna like get the die cast or buy the T-shirt or anything like that. I'm kind of. I'm lost, and what makes me laugh so hard is the irony that it's Kevin Harvick, the guy who goes after every young driver the moment they step out of line. He's gone after the Dillons. He's gone after Chastain recently, and I just like that he's the one that has to drive the millennial car, and that's going to go on his tombstone.
Well, they're paying for it, so he has no choice, I don't think.
Drove the millennial car, but I don't know. Like I said, it's not as bad as I originally thought. It's ultimately, I think the original design, I looked at that and I thought, ooh, I feel like that just reflects bad on NASCAR as a culture. But after looking at the actual final version, I'm like, ooh, that might only look bad on Busch Beer, the company. So in that case, I'm okay with it. If Busch really thinks this is the best way to advertise, I feel like they're advertising to older fans, mostly older patrons. So I think some of them might get a hoot out of it, as I'm sure they would say. but I just don't think it's really.
Would say that.
Hello, fellow young people.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. It's not great. I'm glad that it's not just the plain white car they initially put out there.
Yeah.
The pink is I don't like the look of it, but it's a nice touch. I just can't wait to see what the fire suit looks like. Maybe that'll have a stone head.
Oh gosh, yeah. windVOW, would you consider racing that car in NASCAR Thunder 2004?
Hey man, if it goes fast, absolutely. That's all I'm worried about. But no, I think it's I mean, most importantly, I guess for Bush, it's something to get people talking, right? So it's, I mean, we're doing it right here. So I think it's probably good on them, and I think most importantly, I'm happy that they did it, you know, because they after Homestead, Harvick lost, and people were already asking them about it. And it took a couple of months before they're like, oh yeah, we're doing it. So I'm glad they got it together, but. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's funny because it's stupid. I'll probably even buy a diecast of it just because it's stupid.
Because it's stupid. Wait, which one is better, Kyle Busch's pony car or this one?
Oh man, the pony car was a classic, man. I don't have that one. I wanted to get that.
Yeah, I'd say pony car as well, just because it was more visually appealing. I like that it's pink and not white, but I mean, it's not my kind of pink.
I'll take pony for 500.
All right, we're all unanimous on that front then. So next topic, a fun little topic I made up. So I asked the fans on Twitter today. Now this is stemming from the whole first take fiasco the day before, where Max Kellerman was saying Kawhi is better than Kobe was. That's exactly what he said as far as being clutch and stuff. And depending on I was like, oof. And then
I don't know any of this. I know who Kobe Bryant is, and that's about it.
Yeah, but Eric, he knows, like, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
I despise Kobe Bryant, so I will not say anything
Oh,
positive.
no, God. Okay, all right. But so anyway,
Hold up. I'm gonna stop the show right now, and we've been tagged in something by Keplinger, and this needs to be shown.
okay.
Oh,
What
no.
is it? Oh no, what is it? Let's see.
Oh, I'm waiting for my notification to pop up.
You share screening it?
Come on. Hold on 1 second.
All right,
All right.
right.
Share screening.
it's on to you now.
Nice.
Let's see what he has to say. Oh, that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, got all the old memes.
John Deere.
John
We have
Deere.
Brian Galding to the 23.
It was
Waltrip,
Galding to
obviously.
41. It was Galding to 41, not 23. You got that wrong.
Stubborn.
Yes, the born. Baseball
Swear
races.
jar.
All that. Good
The
stuff.
YouTube Pro Series. Oh wait, NY. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the NASCAR YouTube Pro series.
And then the podcast. I like it.
Danny
Oh,
beats
but we-
sponsor.
Thank you, Keplinger. Always with the fantastic memes. Him and Carnation, man. Always a blast. So this begs the question here, about, clutchness and all that stuff. In the playoff era, from 2004 to the present day, who is the most clutch driver in NASCAR playoff history?
The easy answer is Jimmy, because he's won 7 of them. So, yeah.
Wait, hold on. You know what? Let me ask this a little differently. So there's 2 different eras, I think. So 2004 to 2013, that was the chase era, and then 2014 to now is the playoff era. So who's the most clutch in both of those eras?
Okay, if you the chase era, I'll say Jimmy. The playoff era, it's a little more complicated because we don't have any repeat champions. Now, I would say Kyle Busch because I think he's been in the championship 4 every single year. But then when you think about it, like LeBron's 3-5 in the finals. Kyle Busch is 1 for like 5 in the championship race, which isn't a very good record. Now, you'd expect Kyle to have at least 2 championships by now. So I don't know. Harvick's another one. He's always good. He's always, I don't know if clutch is the right word because he did have like 20 second place finishes across 2 years, which means he ain't good at finishing the deal. So I don't know. That's a tricky one. I don't know if anyone's really been that clutch since 2014.
I'll say Johnson for the chase era. Harvick. I think there's really no definitive one, but if I'm going to pick one, it's going to be Harvick. Just because I believe he's made it every year that they've had it. And on top of that, he's also, you look at 2014 and how he got there to win it. And it was by winning a race because he had a problem, I believe, at Martinsville. He had a crash. So I'll go Harvick. There's really no definitive one you can pick because there's no repeat champion, and there's pretty much been the same like 6 people every year that have been through there. So I guess you could pick like Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Joe Logano, Truex.
Brad Keselowski should get mentioned. I feel like there's been a couple of years where he's been facing elimination, and especially Talladega. Hasn't he come through to win that race? I know once when he was facing elimination. It might have been twice, actually, he's done it. So I could throw Keselowski's name in there, except he hasn't won a championship since 2012. So I don't know.
Okay, every year but 16 Harvick made it, but still I'll go with Harvick just because he's made it in bigger situations to the last four where I don't know. It's hard to pick.
Yeah, I'm going with Johnson obviously for the entire Chase era, but then I'd say Kevin Harvick as well. I mean, just based off of 2014 right there, you know, he had to win to basically advance and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, it is really hard to pick one because while we have had, you know, the same guys, you know, in some of these Final Four situations, like they've each won. So it's like it's not like Harvick's won like 2 or 3 championships in a row in this era, or like Kyle Busch either, you know, or even Joey Logano, and he's been there plenty of times. So it is really hard to pick a definitive one in this case. But what do you think, windVOW?
Yeah, I was gonna say Jimmy Johnson's probably the easiest choice, but as soon as you said that, first thing that jumped to my mind was it 2011 Tony Stewart went out there, won half of the chase. I was the first thing that popped in my mind. I was like, man, I mean that's about as clutch as it gets right there. He showed up when it was most important. So yeah, I think I guess the playoffs it's kind of hard at this point since I guess we haven't had too terribly many seasons of it. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I guess probably somebody said it. Kevin Harvick, didn't he? He had one. It was a must win. Was it Dover? I think I don't remember what year it was, but
2015, I believe.
That was one of the first things that popped in my head. But yeah, man, going back to that Tony Stewart, that 2011 chase, man, that was some good stuff.
Right on.
Almost made me a Stewart fan for a few weeks there.
There he goes. I always got to throw a jab at Stewart right there.
Saying.
All right, moving on. So it was announced today that NASCAR is going to stop the race for a brief moment during the Memorial Day race at Charlotte, or I'm sorry, Memorial Day weekend race at Charlotte, to pay homage and respect to, you know, the fallen veterans who have served this country. And you would think that would just be, okay, you know, it's a great thing, but that's not the case. There were some reactions, especially from the infamous Brumberg. Or yeah, I said his name right, did I? Brumberg. Okay. Or Brumberg, whoever, or no, in this case, Bumberg. Yeah, Bumberg.
Yeah, there you go.
Our media Voldemort.
Yeah, basically, he was all against it, and then you even had the other dude, NASCAR Opinions, who was kind of against it too. I don't know. I just really don't understand what the big issue is. They did this back in 2009 during the rain-delayed race, or no, during the postponed race at Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600. They stopped for like 3 minutes. But yeah, I don't like. So like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this really an issue here as far as racing goes, or I don't know? What do you think, Jared?
They're taking a break anyway. Because it'll be at the end of stage 2, so it'll be at the halfway point. From what if it's anything, because I was actually watching the 09 600 earlier this week, surprisingly.
Oh, I remember Junior was horrible that race. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was not fun. But I was watching that race earlier this week, and I assume since they're going to go on pit road instead of on the front stretch this time, they're probably going to stop it, have a brief 2-minute red flag. Everyone has a moment of silence around the track, and then they just go back and
that's it.
Back to racing. In my opinion, nobody, as cynical as this probably sounds, no one's probably going to really remember in 3 or 4 weeks that race was stopped halfway through. They're probably going to remember just the race itself. I think people are completely overreacting, and it's sort of another kind of like what Moody was doing and just going after the shock value.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Some people think that they're pandering. I really don't think that's what it is. They've proven to do stuff like this in the past.
Pandering to what though? I don't understand. Like, you know, NASCAR's they're very patriotic though. Like, they've always been that way. So it's like not really a surprise.
I don't like doing the generalizations, but I'll do it here. I think it's just the matter of some fans want to complain. There's no reason really to complain here. If anything else, you know, just a no comment would do. But
yeah, it's like if they announce suddenly they were going to do something like this at just any typical race weekend, say at Kansas this weekend, they're like, it's Kansas, middle of May, we're just going to park the cars and do this little salute. People, in that case, I think some people would maybe have a valid concern, be like, well, why? This seems unnecessary. But in this case, it's the Coke 600. The Coke 600 wraps up a huge day of auto racing across the world. It's Memorial Day weekend, which is all about saluting the veterans and everything like that. don't understand why this is a question.
Seems like a no-brainer to do that.
It's NASCAR. It's freaking like it's not like they just started doing this 2 years ago. It's freaking NASCAR. They've done this for decades. I don't understand. Like I actually didn't read. I just now pulled up Bromberg's tweet because I did not see it. But why he says it? He says in his tweet, "This is unnecessary." I mean, yeah, it's not necessary. Nobody's gonna freaking die if we don't do this. But I wanted to walk out of the room when I read that tweet, but then I had to hear what you guys had to say because that is the epitome of complaining without an actual argument and complaining about something that doesn't warrant a single complaint.
It's just
it's moronic. It's ridiculous.
It's very unnecessary. I don't remember people back in 2009 complaining about it. Like it was just
exactly. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure what some people are thinking. But this is NASCAR media though, so it should be a surprise.
He even mentions how it's like, oh, corporatism is just trying to pander, using patriotism to pander. It's like, what company is there? A company sponsoring this?
Yeah,
is there a company saying it's the moment of silence sponsored by Diet Coke? I don't see that anywhere. It's literally NASCAR just saying we're gonna do a moment of silence. It's idiotic.
the moment of silence.
Silence sponsored by Huron's Bud Light.
Yeah, by Budweiser or whatever.
Or whatever those Austin Dillon ads I keep seeing on YouTube are.
AstraZeneca presents those moment of silence.
Yeah, Austin Dillon's gonna say that. Yeah, Austin.
Like I'll be all for like if someone made like I saw some people making like the people I noticed that were complaining most were the people who were responding or quote tweeting Bromberg. Those were the ones. But then it's like the people around like Jeff Gluck or Dustin Long or Bob Pockrass. They're all just like, yeah, they probably could do it before, but it's all right kind of thing. It's like normal people, you know.
Bromberg, I mean, he's kind of soiled his reputation there already. So
soiled it.
Yeah, he's already soiled it, man, already. So we'd be surprised. Yeah. Let's just move on, man. Totally unnecessary. The last topic before we get into the Kansas preview / picks is actually about the race before it. So the best series in all of NASCAR, the Gander Outdoors Truck Series, their entry list came out on on Tuesday. At first, there was only 28 trucks on the entire list, but then, there's more. Brendan Poole announced that due to lack of funding, his team would not show up at Kansas, so now there's only 27 trucks. Jarrett, does this call for major concern here?
I wouldn't say it's like end of the world yet, but I'd say it's part of an alarming trend of less and less truck teams showing up. And on top of that, how many of them are the actual funded ones?
Probably 7.
Yeah, I remember when NASCAR basically bought up ARCA last year. We were talking, it's like, you know, eventually are they just sort of going to merge the series together, and you know, are they going to be the trucks or ARCA or whatever? But I mean, it costs so much, you know, no matter what series you're in, Truck, Xfinity, Cup, and you look at, like, for instance, I don't know if they still show up, and I know back, you know, a few years ago when they showed all the winnings and stuff, you looked at how much some of these truck teams were making, and it was like less than $10,000 for people that were finishing, you know, 25th, you know, 30th, you know, and while that's not good finishes, that pays for like the tires. So they're, you know, a set of tires for the weekend, for all of them. I don't know really what to say other than I think until they can manage either to get the purses up more or you know, can make it cheaper, I think we're going to see shorter and shorter fields as we go. So I think it's definitely something that needs to be looked at. I don't think it's the end of the world yet, but I mean, the way that the truck series is going, it's not a good trend.
Yeah, but I will say this. There is one thing that's certain, you know, and in all this uncertainty. There's 27 trucks in the field. Natalie Decker will probably still finish outside of the top 20. Probably.
You're not wrong.
I don't know, just the way it is.
In the field. That's all I need to know. I'll watch if Norm is in the field.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah. Go Norm. Go Norm Benning.
I'll wear a Norm Benning shirt and everything.
Eric, what do you think? Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's concerning, but it's I mean, for the last several years, they've been flirting in the low 30s. So this isn't a huge issue, at least not now. If it continues, obviously it could get worse. But you just look, it's the third series in NASCAR's, top level in quotes. At some point, as NASCAR has shrunk a little bit, its audience has shrunk. The first thing that I feel like was going to be hurt has been the trucks, and we've seen that with like BKR closing and so on, and other big teams. So it's not shocking. When I went to my first IndyCar race a couple months ago, I didn't actually know anything about this series, but there's the Indy Lights, which, if those of you in the chat that don't know, they're like basically their version of the Xfinity series.
Dude,
And
nobody
like,
ever goes to that. Nobody ever goes
we're
to
gonna do
those
we're,
races.
we're gonna do an Indy Lights race today. And I'm like, okay, let's see what this is. They wheeled out 10 cars
Yeah.
for the Indy Lights
Oh
race.
man, I was there for the Freedom 100 last year at Indianapolis. They raced with 7.
Yeah, I was just shocked. I was like, this is a series with 10. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying if IndyCar, again, I use this comparison. If IndyCar can survive with 10 cars in their second series, the truck series is in trouble. The truck series could die sometime within the next 10 years and merge with ARCA, like you said, or somehow merge with Xfinity, however it may end up to being.
No, it should be the other way around. Have ARCA merge with the trucks to keep it the trucks. Come on now.
Yeah, well, however it ends up working, it might not be perfect, but I don't think it's in any danger of ultimately disappearing, at least not in the next few years.
Well, I will say this though, Jordan Anderson, he's going to be racing in that. Maybe he might get a top 10 in that, his first top 10 of the season. We love him on the show, man. So hopefully next time we have him on, he can talk about his top 10 run at Kansas as well. So I think Kyle Busch is racing in the Truck Series race as well to add insult to injury. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Great.
So,
His lead's going to get even bigger because he has less cars to lap this week.
yeah. So it's not a good situation all around.
That might be why some people aren't showing up.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's like, Kyle Busch is racing. Never
Well,
mind.
because they know fans aren't going to watch. Like, I don't. Then the fact that I know Kyle's racing means I have less a chance I'm going to watch as much of this race.
Damn, that's bad.
I'll be honest. It really is. It's like I'll tune in, but if Kyle has a 10-second lead, I'm tuning out.
1 second viewer, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry not to out myself there.
All right, so the last on the agenda tonight, this weekend's race at Kansas takes place on Saturday on FS1, correct? Or is it on Fox? Or no, FS1. Yeah, FS1. So it's a Saturday night race on the 1.5 mile track, which I still don't get why 1.5 mile tracks have night races. I don't get it. There's really no need for them. I don't know. If anything, I would love to see more short track races on Saturday nights, to be honest with you. But this race is happening. So let's get right into it. Let's change it up a little bit here. Let's have our guests start off with the picks. So Michael, who's gonna suck? Who's gonna suck this weekend at Kansas?
Geez, I could have a list for that. Oh man, that's a really good question. Man, I don't know, man. I feel like one of the biggest stories from Dover is how Hendrick did really well. I mean, I'm sure Chase will probably run well, but I'm sure. I mean, the first thing I thought of was I'm sure we'll have another classic Bill Byron or William Byron race. Sorry, I call him Bill all the time. He ran really well at Dover. Same with Alex Bowman. I guess Jimmy Johnson was kind of new, but I could see probably Hendrick not running so well and kind of going back to their same old 1.5 mile deal with Chase. I mean, I guess he won there the last time they went to Kansas, so I guess that's my prediction.
Now, Jarrett, you're going to be picking for Danny B also as well, correct?
Yeah, Danny sent me his pick, and his funny for suck. He didn't have any explanation. He just put Bubba Wallace.
Oh wow, well, yeah, that's not really shocker. Yeah, shocker.
I'll put him on my list too.
Now, Jarrett, who's your pick?
All right, my pick. So I was looking through some stats, and it's funny. You know how I had it for one point? It was 9 was the big trend I was doing. Well, I have another trend. It's the letter B. So the first one that I'm going to pick for who's going to suck is Clint Boyer. He's from Kansas, hometown boy, but he's not very good there. Even though of active drivers, he's in the top 10 for average finishes. His average finish is 16.6. And he hasn't really improving it much lately. He has 21 starts, no wins, 2 top 5s, and 6 top 10s. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not even close to being 50% rate when it comes to top 10s. So Boyer for me is the sucker pick.
Eric?
Yeah. One thing first to clarify, some people in the chat were saying that actually I think Brandon Jones is racing instead of Kyle Busch in the truck race.
Is he?
I'll double check on that, but if that's
Well,
true,
yay! Then thank goodness.
Yeah, I didn't see him on the entry list. I looked through it, so.
Okay, good. All right, great.
all right, Brandon Jones. Well, yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, for my suck pick, gosh, I looked at the finishes from last year, but I don't remember exactly where this guy finished. I know he wasn't up in the top 5 or anything. I'm gonna sound like a complete hater because I've saying so much praise towards this guy the last week or two. But I think Alex Bowman is unfortunately going to go back. I think Hendrick Motorsports. I kind of agree with what you were saying, Michael, about Hendrick Motorsports. They've run really well the last 2 weeks, but it's at 2 very special tracks: a super speedway and a kind of unique mile-long track. They go back to a standard 1.5 mile oval. We've seen glimpses this year, but I haven't seen anything great. I think Bowman runs 15th.
Breaking Danny's hurt.
Yeah, sorry, Danny.
Well, my pick's very obvious. That Huff guy. He's so annoying. He's a nuisance on the track. I know it's pretty obvious. It's a very easy one to pick and stuff, but I'm sorry. He is just so slow and he's so bad. I mean, I'm not for a guy like oh, he shouldn't be there, but I don't know, for this I have to consider it, man, because I don't know, like his resume before that didn't really call for that, and for him to even be there, and ever since he's been there, he's just been a nuisance and stuff. I'll make a bold prediction. NASCAR tells him to get the F off the track after 20 laps. There you go. So he's gonna suck. All right. So for the next pick, let's go with underdogs. Michael, start us off. Who is your underdog for this weekend at Kansas?
Ooh, I'll take Daniel Suarez for 500, please. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's got potential. I'd like to see him run well. I think he could do it. I think he's shown glimpses of good things at 1.5 miles and really everywhere. I mean, yeah, a couple tracks here and there, but I can see him doing really well.
Jarrett? Oh, Jarrett and Danny B. In this case.
I'll go with Danny's first. So, underdog. I'm not very surprised by this one. It's Alex Bowman.
Does he? That's like 3 weeks in a row,
man.
isn't it?
And hey, what's happened the last 2 weeks?
Oh, he's finished second. Yeah, so.
Okay. So he has an explanation for this one. So Alex Bowman, see if he can keep up the consistency and keep it going. Chase won last year at Kansas, so Hendrick cars can be good for here. Good point.
Yeah, good point. I'll agree to that.
As for moi, I'm picking Ryan Blaney as my underdog pick. Blaney in 8 starts is a 13th place average, which is not setting the world on fire, but still in those 8 races, while he hasn't got a win, he has 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s. And I think that he can keep that going this week. I think he can be in contention for a top 5.
And dominated last year's race, right before that. I think it was the 2nd or 3rd caution came out, and then it bunched up the field together. Different strategies came into play there, and then him and Larson got together, and unfortunately, he didn't even finish the race there. So good pick, Eric.
I've had a tough time just picking one here, deciding between a couple different people. Part of me wants to say Kurt Busch for my underdog again, just because he's just been so good this year, but I'll stray away from that. I'm gonna go with Ryan Newman. He doesn't always have the finishes to show for it, but he's run inside the top 15 at several 1.5 miles this year. I know Texas, he was up in the top 10. I think he even finished up near the top 10, or I think he finished like 11th. I don't know exactly where he finished at Texas, and I feel like this race is gonna. I think of all the races we've seen leading up this year, leading up to Kansas, I think the most similar race to Kansas was Texas. I think Texas and Kansas are going to be the most similar. Both 1.5 miles, both pretty freshly repaved, same aero package. So, I'll go with Newman as my underdog pick.
And what a difference a year makes. Last year at Kansas, that team looked dead. They had to bring in Matt Kenseth, who made his first start of the 2018 season for them, and then now
and wrecked.
Yeah, and unfortunately wrecked. But now Ryan Newman's pointing them inside the playoffs. So good for that team. I'm going with Tyler Reddick, who is going to be making his 2nd start of the 2019 season. He is currently the Xfinity Series points leader. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do on these 1.5 mile tracks. I'm even going to go as far as saying him running inside the top 10 is not. It's there. I could see that this weekend. just going off of how Austin Dillon's been running and stuff. I'm not saying he's gonna finish there, but at some point in the race he could run there. Maybe depending on this race, this may open the door for some more select events in the Cup Series for him to run in 2019, and could possibly lead to a full-time Cup Series ride. Maybe, I don't know if they'll start a third team or tell Daniel Hemrick to hit the hay, but I don't know. You never know. So we'll see what happens. All right. So now to the main event. Who is going to win at Kansas this Saturday? Michael, start us off.
Man, I was in the middle of my making up my mind. I got two drivers. Joey Logano or Brad Keselowski. I want to go with Brad Keselowski. I think they've been pretty strong in the mile and a half. I'll take Brad Keselowski.
Soundhead loves that pick, by the way. Soundhead.
Yeah, he does.
Danny picks Eric Almirola. I think this is kind of explanatory. This track really suits his style. I could see him doing pretty well. Though I think, even though I think he'll do well, I don't think he will win. The guy I think is going to win is going to be Mr. Record Setter himself, Kyle Busch. And here's why. For one, he just tied the record for most top 10s in a row. So he's proven that no matter what the track is, he's going to be up there in the top 10. Now, and on top of that, had you told me in 2013 I was picking Kyle Busch for Kansas, I would have thought you were mental. Like, because the first 8 or so years of his career, he sucked at Kansas.
Yeah, he got bad.
Did he even get a top 10 by 2013 at Kansas? I think he got maybe
so.
He was awful at Kansas, which makes his stat line right now really awesome. Because since 2013, it means he's gotten 1 win there, 6 top 5s, and 10 top 10s. Now, I don't know about you guys, but those are some pretty good numbers to be putting up in 5 years. 10 Kansas races, 10 top 10s, and 6 top 5s and a win. And it seems like he is a little bit better than he was last year, bit better than he's been in a lot of years. It seems like this year in general, when it comes to him as a driver, he's just continued to elevate. And until he proves me wrong, I don't see a reason why I shouldn't pick Kyle Busch more than anyone else throughout this year. So I'm gonna go with Shrub.
Yeah, Toyota's Joe Gibbs Racing. They've been the best team in NASCAR to this year up to this point. Penske's been really good as well. Going with the Logano or Keselowski or even a Ryan Blaney sounds good on paper. Very realistic possibility. But I'm gonna step outside the box ever so slightly. I'm going with Eric Jones to win this weekend at Kansas. He finished in the top 10 in both races here last year. I think he was 7th and then 3rd or 4th in the fall race during his strong playoff run after he'd been eliminated. But Eric Jones ran well here last year, and like I said earlier, I think this race is going to look the most similar to Texas from a few weeks back, and Eric Jones led a lot of laps in that race and almost won it, finished 4th. So I'm going to go with, every other Joe Gibbs car has won this year. In fact, they've all won more than once, except Eric Jones. I think the pressure's on him. I think that lights a fire underneath him. He ran well at Dover, finished top 10, finished 6th. I think he rides that momentum and wins at Kansas.
So, I don't know. I've said this before so far this season. I don't know why everyone is saying this guy's having a bad season. Currently 3rd in the standings. I know he's like 60 points behind the points leader Kyle Busch, but he dominated here last year, and he's still looking for his first win. Kevin Harvick, I think, can get the job done, and he is racing his that scheme this weekend, correct?
The Millennial car, no, isn't that the All-Star race?
Or is it for the All-Star race? Oh, okay.
It's the All-Star race.
They need to make sure it was a race that not everybody saw.
Yeah.
A shorter race, so it's not on track as often.
Yeah, basically.
Because millennials have short attention spans.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why they didn't do it at Daytona like they originally planned to.
Yeah. So, I think Kevin Harvick can get the job done and stuff. And like I said about the 6th team, what a difference a year makes. At this point last year, he won 5 of the first 12 races. Was on pace to having 15 wins, something like that. So
I remember that last year.
Yeah, crazy numbers. But if you weren't a Harvick fan, it was very brutal to watch because it was just him, Truex, and Busch just winning all of these races. So I feel like he can get the job done though. Harvick, I don't think he's gonna dominate. I'll even say he'll go on to win a stage, as well. Probably maybe stage 2, and then he'll ride off into the sunset with his first win of 2019. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So really quick before we end the stream, there was a couple more super chats I wanted to read. Let's see. So Sterling Simons with the $5 super chat. The Millennial car can't be as ugly as Kyle Busch's Z-Line Designs Toyota Sponsifyer car from 2008 to 2009.
Ponies for the win.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I second that.
Yeah. Wait, what did that car look like again? I'm sorry.
Pink with ponies.
Oh, that's the one we were talking about. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what it was called. The Sponsor Fire one. That's right. Yeah, my bad. I totally forgot the name of it. I just know it is like the car with ponies and stuff like that. So, yeah. And then the last one is from Carl Singleton for the $2 super chat. Thanks, man. He says, "Oh, this is I've never seen this one before. Should the NCAA do a stock car racing league?" Hell no, because that would be so corrupt. It'd be so crazy.
Well, there's no demand for it, and plus, let's be completely honest here, only the people running it would actually get any money out of it.
Yeah, like if that were the case, nobody would be getting paid. There'd be all these sponsors, man. They would be, and then you would see all of these under the table deals, you know, like you see in like basketball and football. The students, the student athletes, they're supposed to get paid when they're really not and stuff. And plus, we already sort of have that. I mean, except in this case, the drivers they're getting paid. It's called the Xfinity Series in a way. So. But the only difference is, grown guys like Kyle Busch and stuff, they can come down and they can race against you and beat you.
I do know of one interesting thing. I do not know much about it, but I found out about it earlier this year at like my college. I go to Texas. They do have, I don't know if it's a club.
Motorsports. It is a motorsports thing. They run like open wheel cars sometimes.
Yes, they set up and run and race open wheel cars. I guess against other colleges that have these clubs.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the league name is or like the series name is.
Yeah.
But like they'll go to tracks. Like they even go to Michigan sometimes. I heard too.
Yeah, anyway, I know that's a thing, so that's sort of like that. But it sounds like it's not the NCAA. I guess it's just their own thing.
It's just like sort of a college campus club type thing, and then like they contact all the other motorsports clubs around the country, and they form a little league and stuff. So I guess it's a blessing that the NCAA is not involved in it because they're just a mess. I can't stand them. So hypocritical when it comes to their student athletes, that sort of thing. But yeah, so that'll do it for tonight's show. I really want to thank our guest, Michael Cosley. I hope I get your last name.
Cozy,
right,
there's
man.
no L in there. We're going to get it right one of these times.
I keep saying Cosley. I don't know why. Cozy. Dang it. My bad, man.
Add that to the meme card, Keplinger.
Add that to the memes right there. Better known as windVOW8820.
You did core with him for how long?
I'm sorry. I'm not good with names. I'm sorry. It's just I'm just not good with names. I'm not really good with anything at that. And if we're gonna go into it, but yeah. So windVOW, is there anything you want to say before we head out? Just name off your social medias where people can find you.
Well, I mean, if you want to watch me yell and curse at racing games, you can subscribe to my channel. That's really about it. I tweet some stupid things every once in a while. It's the same windVOW8820. That's really about it.
And also go Starcom, correct?
Yeah, go Star. You can see me tweet Starcom stuff. Yes.
There you go. Big Starcom supporter right there. But yeah, so this was one of the best shows we've done, man. I always love doing these podcasts and stuff with you guys, especially hosting them. It's way more fun. So really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm gonna meet you guys hopefully. I don't have a malfunction like last week, but yeah. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Lives Matter. Catch you next time. Cue the outro.
Green flag, green flag.